All right, good evening. Apologize for the late start, but we're going to go ahead and get started right now. As a reminder, if you would like to speak before the council tonight, please complete a blue speaker request form and give it to the clerk prior to the item being discussed. Also, just real quick, as a reminder, we do have Windsong video production here this evening, helping us out with some video. So just as a reminder, everything tonight is going to be not only audio recorded, but there's also going to be some video recording also too. So, Mr. Donahue, can we please have a roll call?
Councilmember Yao?
Here.
Councilmember Lorimore?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Plott?
Here.
Mayor Rigby?
Here.
Councilmember Tassari is absent.
All right, thank you. And we will begin with tonight's invocation by Pastor Sam Tanner of Alive Theater Church, please.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come before you and to represent this city and its affairs. And Lord, I just pray that you would, first of all, continue to bless the city officials and the council members for their contribution to our lives. And I just pray for them and their families that you would bless them and that you would lift them up in every way, give them the energy to do their regular jobs as well as to commit themselves to us as a people. And Father, I pray that tonight, everything that would come across their way as far as the agenda, I pray that you would give them divine wisdom to know how to address those issues properly and to be able to just bring a good result for the majority of our citizens, Lord. I just pray, Father, our community would continue to prosper, that you would bless us in every way. And Lord, we continue to put ourselves before you and acknowledge that you are God. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that prayer. We appreciate it. We have the honor this evening to be led by Girl Scout Troop 2091 in the Pledge of Allegiance, so we will turn it over to them, please.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Girls, before you leave, if you don't mind, thank you for coming. And council, if you don't mind, can we get a picture with them just real quick down there? And these girls are brave enough, they're going to share a public comment with us later in the meeting. So we're excited to hear from them. Moving on to item number 3, additions and revisions. The council may only add an item to the agenda after making a finding that there is a need to take immediate action on the item and that the item came to the attention of the agency subsequent to the posting of the agenda. An action adding an item to the agenda requires a majority vote of the council. Mr. Donahue, is there any additions or revisions from staff?
Yes, Mayor. The staff would like to add the presentation of an economic development video under presentations and announcements.
Okay, thank you. And council, is there any additions, revisions? Then I would solicit a motion for the addition from our city clerk.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Donahue, vote please.
Councilmember Yao?
Yes.
Councilmember Lorimore?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Plot,
Yes.
Mayor Rigby.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. So moving on to that item, presentations announcements, 4.1. Item 4.1 is a presentation of an economic video. I would like to ask City Manager Brian Jones to introduce this, please.
Thank you very much. I want to highlight this video. This was released at the ICSC conference in Las Vegas this last weekend with many of our developers to highlight Eastvale as a destination and a place to bring your business. We worked really closely with Windsong Productions, who helped us produce this video, and Olivia Applegate and Kimberly Wright were instrumental in framing and helping create this video to highlight businesses and our development in the community. And so if we can share it now.
Eastvale has a really clear vision of where they want to go. And it's going to be economic development, it'll be the development community, and it'll be the community at large, all working together to carry out that shared vision. The role of economic development will be to guide the developers to make sure they do the right work, but also to spread the message throughout California and throughout the country to say something special is happening in Eastvale and you want to be part of it and you don't want to be left out.
Being local to the area, we knew that this is where we wanted the business to be. We knew that this is where it had to be, and we spent time in the last 3 years looking around, and there was just no other option.
The logistics business and real estate in general is about location, location, location. This site in particular is at Main and Main of the Inland Empire, which is the 15 freeway and the 10 freeway. So it's a fantastic location for logistics.
We wanted to be here in Eastvale for a while, so when we finally got green inked, it was pretty exciting for Costco.
First of all, Eastvale is a beautiful city, so that's number one. Beautiful environment, much quieter. In addition to that, it offered us a reasonable rent or lease value for a bigger space.
We decided to open the location in Eastvale because when we started looking into Eastvale, we kind of knew this was the best place because of the mixed culture, as well as this city is just amazing. It's beautiful.
I'm telling you, every time I talk about having a business in the city, it seriously makes me excited.
And just like you would want to reinvest in your own business, right? You want to reinvest in the city, and we want to do our part to help grow it and help in any way we can be a part of the direction that we want to see the city go.
Eastvale is an amazing city. There is so much potential in Eastvale, and I'm excited to work with the residents and the businesses of Eastvale to really take our community to the next level. We really work with the developers to understand their development projects and how it serves our residents in a way that is respectful of the diversity in our community. We're in a unique opportunity as a young city, and we invite you to be part of creating tomorrow today.
It's really a joy and a pleasure to work in Eastvale because they've got the good bones now, they've got a good basis, and it's got a great reputation.
We want a healthy city, and that's why we're here.
We knew we wanted to be in Eastvale before even being in Eastvale, but to be honest, like now that we're here, like it's been way better than we could have imagined.
Obviously, Costco loves Eastvale. I think I might love Eastvale even more.
I think the city realizes that the market, that the world is changing very, very quickly. I mean, the pace of change is accelerating, and they're open to considering new ideas.
The city of Eastvale was really welcoming. They really wanted new business to open up in Eastvale. So the process was actually very smooth.
So what Eastvale's trying to do with the remaining projects is say, how can we be the very best that we can be? How can we take it to the next level to be one of the best cities in all of California?
I just feel as a developer, it would be silly for you not to want to establish yourself in a city like Eastvale. The growth is going to be endless.
I would encourage anyone to come to Eastvale, because there's not a lot of cities like the city of Eastvale.
So that
Great video. I don't know if you have anything else to share on that, Brian, but just as a reminder, that's the same company that's here doing the filming right now. So it shows the quality and caliber of video that they put together. So we're excited for what they've done to help us with our economic development, as well as part of this is for State of the City video too that we're gonna share. That's gonna be an awesome video that we look forward to. So thank you, Windsong Productions. We appreciate your partnership and all that you guys have done for us.
You know, the one thing, I think the intent of the video too is I think Brian alluded to the ICSC show, but we're in a very competitive
Councilmember
market.
Plot, sorry, can you explain for the public what ICSC is?
It's basically, I've come with the IC, but it's shopping center. So basically it's where all developers, cities, every private company, my company actually goes there. It's probably one of the biggest trade shows of all of North America. They go to basically either grow developments. There's all different types of tenants that are there. Every big, small company are there, right? I think it is actually the largest trade show in all of North America. But not just that, we live in a very competitive market where you have cities that are exactly what we want, right? Exactly what we want. They want the same things, right? And it's a competitive market. They want certain developers there. They want certain tenants there. They want certain restaurants there, right? And doing stuff like the community satisfaction survey or doing the restaurant questionnaire survey, doing videos like that are high quality are the things that, and I can tell you firsthand because I literally we have met with many restaurants in particular and other places. It's very valuable. It's a selling tool, right? And so when you do quality like this, it sparks the interest. It creates that in-house meeting here, that second meeting that you need, or that third meeting. And again, it stands you out from other cities. And so we're just trying to be cutting edge to create the opportunity, to create more opportunities here. And that's really the intent of the video. So, but also that was like the perfect hang cleans and snatches that you could ever see on those lifting portions of the video. Like, it was perfectly flawless, by the way. Just throwing that out there.
It's really an opportunity for us to help tell our story as a city, and work with our development community to tell our story. In that video, you had Randall Lewis, who is an icon in the development community in Southern California. He and his family are part of this shopping center as well as another shopping center. And then as we're developing the Hamner Place down at Sliceman and Hamner, we had Ward Mason there that helped develop the Goodman Center and is continuing to develop the Goodman Center and attract tenants up there with the Amazon and Costco and In-N-Out and Chick-fil-A that I got approved at Planning Commission last week, and Starbucks. And then we also had in there Delta Electronics, who is an employer in our community doing high technology, and then Tinrin, and it really showed a wide array, and then our Eastville Athletics, and I love their shirts in there. It said Eastville Strong, right? And we have a lot of pride in this community, but a lot of times when we get outside of Riverside County, we say something, would you like to come to Eastville? And they say, where's Eastville, right? And so we're trying to help put Eastville on the map, and use technology to help get us on the map, so that when people are looking for a new place to open up a business or open up a restaurant, and we're talking with a number of restaurateurs right now to choose Eastville, and we're hoping to make some big announcements in the not too distant future. This video helps them see the story of Eastville. Not over and over again, we hear people come in and they say, oh, it took 2 years or 3 years to get our business open in this city or that city. And we're like, wow, we just opened up a business in 6 months. We did one in 12 months, right? And the only reason why it took 12 months is them. So we challenge businesses to try to keep up with us, and we roll out the red carpets for great businesses coming to Eastville, and that video was there to do that. So thank you for the opportunity to share that tonight.
Thank you for sharing that. Moving on to item 5, Student Liaison Report. Mr. Brian Medina. I saw him. There he is. He's got to make his presentation. So.
Good evening, council and city staff. So there's not many announcements left because it is coming to the end of the year. Our sixth grade A-track promotion will be on the 29th for all the tracks or year-round schools at 8:30 a.m. Sixth grade C and D track promotions will be on the 28th of June, and it is at 8:30 a.m. And then sixth grade B track promotion will be on the 28th of June as well at 9:45 a.m. And then the sixth graders at Harrod Elementary will be going to Knott's Berry Farms to celebrate the promotion. River Heights and Augie Ramirez's intermediate school will be promoting on June 5th, either at 9 a.m. or 1 p.m. It switches, so I don't know which one is in the morning and which is in the afternoon. Graduation for Eleanor Roosevelt High School is June 4th, and it will begin at 7:45 a.m. I believe that my assistant principal, p.m. Did I say a.m.? Oh, yeah, no, I'm not even awake. No, and I believe that our principal is making you guys a part of the announcements or the presentation of who's present there. So I'm not sure, but I'm trying to keep that in contact with Dr. Stanton. Girls softball actually made semifinalists for CIF, and the graduation walk where all the seniors at Roosevelt go back to visit their elementary schools such as Harada, Claire Barton, Ronald Reagan, and get to walk in their cap and gowns and show the current elementary school students that they made it and that they have the same possibilities. And last but not least, Senior Awards Night was last Thursday, and it was a total success. Many students got a lot of financial aid and scholarships. I personally received a $1,000 scholarship from the Chamber of Commerce, which I'm surely appreciated. And yeah. Any questions?
Great job, well deserved.
Thank you.
So, way to go. This isn't my question. This is the same question that Brandon Plott asked a while back.
Okay, I know what it is.
What is it?
He gets announced on the 24th. He or she, sorry, gets announced on the 24th, and they should be here in the next meeting. I don't know who it is yet, but yeah, it gets announced this Friday at 3 p.m.
Awesome. Well, you've done a great job for us.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate all that you've done, and we wish you great success, and we know that you will be very successful. So,
Thank you.
congratulations on that scholarship, and we wish you the best.
Thank you.
Any questions for him? Thank you, sir.
No, thank you.
He's going to be our future Norco College Alumni of the Year
okay.
right there.
Well, I don't know about that, but thank you.
Thanks, Brian. All right, moving on to item 6, public comments. Any member of the public may address the council on items within the council's subject matter jurisdiction, but which are not listed on this agenda during public comments. However, no action may be taken on matters that are not part of the posted agenda. We request comments made on the agenda be made at the time the item is considered and that comments be limited to 3 minutes per person. Please address your comments to the council as a whole and do not engage in dialogue with individual council members, city staff, or members of the audience. Mr. Donahue, do we have any public comments?
Yes, Mayor, we have 5 comment cards. The first one is for Felicia Chen.
Ms. Chen, please.
Good evening, Your Honor and City Council members. First, the Eastville Public Library would like to announce that after months of planning and execution, the Eastville Public Library is finally able to have an extended nonprofit organization. Our nonprofit organization is called the Friends of the Library. They will be in charge of donated items as well as fundraising opportunities. The Eastville Public Library would like to thank Councilmember Jocelyn Yao for her hard work and dedication into making this organization possible for the library. We hope that this is the first step in many exciting opportunities for the library and the community. The library would also like to mention its fairly new program called Zip Books. This is a grant-funded program that has been awarded throughout the RCLS community libraries. If a certain book is not within our library, patrons have the ability to request the item via Amazon Prime. This item would be sent to their desired location, either their house or the library, for a period of 2 weeks. Patrons would then return the item back to the original RCLS library that they requested it from. Thus far, it has been a fairly successful program, and we are hoping more patrons are wanting to participate. Items that can be requested are books and audiobooks. There are a few restrictions when requesting the items through the program. First, the designated library cannot already own the item, and second, the item cannot be a newly released item within 6 months. This is a rare opportunity for the RCLS libraries to be expanding their collections as well as being able to provide a different outlet for gaining books. And lastly, as a reminder, summer reading program is approaching fast on its heels. We are making final preparations. We are excited. We have an exciting program with lots of new prizes and different food vouchers to look forward to. We hope everyone comes and participates in all our activities starting June 8th. Was there any questions?
Councilmember Littlemore.
Thank you. Thank you for the update. Could you clarify again for this special program through Amazon, I believe that you said, is it only for audiobooks or is it other books as well?
No, it's paperbacks as well as audiobooks.
Okay, all right. Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilmember Yao, for assisting with that and the Friends of the Library, so.
Mayor, if I might just add, Felicia, per the direction of City Council, we started a needs assessment and a site selection process for a future City Hall, Civic Center, library location. And so just wanted to let you know that we're working towards building a permanent place for both City Hall and the library, and we're doing an evaluation. We're starting that, so just wanted to keep you updated on that.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Donahue.
Next speaker is Keith White.
Mr. White.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Just some heads up. Starting January 2020, RC beginning a brand new bus route, which we can't wait for, starting Archibald, River Road down Archibald, of Limonite to Amazon and back around. Also, another thing I'd like to say is people are happy with the bus stop at Swan Lake. Now I got an account on it. There's like 20 people getting off of that bus stop daily. So it's worked out perfect. But even the college students are happy because now they can cross the go down 58th Street. Every year, RTA has a summer youth fair program, 25 cents. And I believe it's the third year, I could be wrong. From June 1st until September, I should know the date by now. I think it's through September 2nd. The kids can, anyway from elementary up to 19 years of age can ride all buses for a quarter. So like you want to go to Disneyland, the students don't have to pay a quarter all the way to Disneyland. It covers all community link routes. So for a quarter from here to Disneyland for the kids, you can't beat that. And every year this program has been really, it's been upgrading. I mean, they had students, it's increased students every year. I forgot what last year I know we had over a lot of students, right? I forgot the amount, but so just let you guys know, so any parents that want to send their kids on the bus, whatever, it's 25 cents a fare, quarter. So just letting you guys know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith, and thank you to Councilmember Plott and then also to Ike Bootsma, and they were instrumental in getting that bus stop moved. So thank you for your guys' involvement in getting that done for our community. Mr. Donahue.
Next speaker is Fran Rife.
City Council and City staff. My name is Fran Rife, and I'm a kinder teacher at Rosa Parks Elementary School. And for the past 8 years, I've coordinated an amazing school event focused on showcasing the artistic talents of our students. This year, Rosa Parks' annual Art Walk is going to be held on Friday, June 7th, from 5 to 8 p.m. And I'd like to personally invite you, the city staff, and all of the citizens of Eastvale to attend. During this event, artwork from our 1,700 students will be showcased throughout the halls of our school. In addition to the student artwork, the Rosa Parks Photo Club will be exhibiting their photos. The Corona Art Association will be displaying their art and doing art demonstrations. Elementary art stars will be doing art lessons. And Don Kindred will be having a quartet from the Corona Symphony Orchestra performing. We usually have about 700 to 800 in attendance that night, so we hope to see you there. I know Mr. Lormore and Mr. Plott and Mr. Rigby was also there last year. The event is at Rosa Parks Elementary School at 13830 Whispering Hills Drive. Any questions?
Councilmember Plott.
Just a comment. Yeah, it's an awesome event. It's very not only is there a lot of art you can display well, but it's also very interactive as well. There's all different types of games and different things that kids can enjoy and adults can enjoy as well. So no, it's definitely I'm very grateful. I know we are very grateful that you have basically inspired yourself to create this event, and it's very successful. And there was, how many people you thought there was last year? I mean, there was a lot of people there.
I wish I'd counted, but
yeah,
it was
would
a
take
lot.
a shot at 500 easily.
Yeah, at
easily,
least.
right? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not bad at assessing the number, but it was a lot of people, to say the least. So, yeah, thank you again. It was awesome. So,
Councilmember Lormore.
I'm going to echo Councilmember Plott's comments. Truly a great event, worthwhile for those of you in the audience who haven't participated. And I hear that it gets better every year, so I'm looking forward to this one.
It definitely does. I've been for, how old's my daughter now? She's in 5th grade, so what's that, 5-6 years, and it does get better and better. One of the cool things that I like about it is it's actually a fundraiser also for PTA, correct?
For the school.
For the school.
Yes.
So, and it makes it fun for the kids because as a parent, you can go and you can buy their artwork. And as having a student there, the students really love, wow, mom and dad bought my artwork. So it's really fun for them. But the other thing, I don't want to embarrass anyone, but she's not only the one that's doing this art walk, she's a kindergarten teacher where I don't understand how kindergarten teachers can do it. But she was also recently Teacher of the Year for Rosa Parks. So congratulations on that. Way to go. Well deserved. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Mr. Donahue.
Next speaker is Eddie Torres.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, staff, and Eastville residents. My name is Eddie Torres. I'm with the Office of Assemblymember Cervantes. I am happy to report that 5 bills went up to vote today from the Assemblymember, and all 5 passed to the Senate, and I want to highlight 3 of them. The first one being AB 303. AB 303 will help prevent the early release of sexually violent predators without a trial. Currently, there is a loophole that allows sexually violent predators to game the system to secure release from state custody, and this bill will help close that dangerous loophole. AB 477. AB 477 requires cities and counties to involve representatives of vulnerable communities in their disaster and emergency preparedness planning. This bill is in response to last year's fires that disproportionately impacted seniors and individuals with disabilities. The last bill I'd like to highlight is AB 798. AB 798 would establish a pilot program that addresses the shortage of treatment options for women suffering from maternal mental health disorders. And Mayor, the bills that you inquired about, the Burke and Ting bills, didn't come up to a vote today. I expect them to be up for a vote next week, so I'll update you as that comes to a vote. Thank you.
That's perfect. Thank you. Thank you for being here and sharing that information with us. Mr. Donahue.
Next speaker is Troop 2091.
All right, girls.
Hi, we are Girl Scout Troop 2091. We are working on educating people about honeybees. Without bees, the world would only live for 5 to 7 years.
Bees pollinate about 2,000 flowers per day. The bees live in hives or colonies. They beat their wings about 200 times per second. Bees make honey. They help plants grow by transferring pollen, but they are going extinct. Bees are dying because of pesticides. People kill them on purpose or on accident. They also die of dehydration. Don't worry, but you can help. Our community can leave bees alone, plant flowers, bees like lilac, snapdragons, and zizians. You can also create a bee watering station. Use a shallow dish, small pebbles, and water to give the bees a safe chemical-free watering hole. If every person in our city did one thing, plant flowers, use different pesticides, or made a watering station, we could save the bees. We hope the city can help us spread the word and help save the bees. 3, 2, 1. Save the bees!
That was very good, girls. I know as a lot of us can attest, it's hard to speak in front of people that you don't know like that. And you guys did a great job, especially shared a lot of very good information. I'll take that challenge. I'm going to try and do something to help save the bees, okay? So I will do that, and I challenge everyone else to do the same, to try and do something to help save the bees. Councilmember Yao.
Mr. Mayor, maybe we should have them do RCA Species of the Month. They did such a great job, much better than how I would have delivered it. So.
Awesome.
It's hard to beat that.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you for being here. Mr. Donahue.
No more comment cards.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 7, our consent calendar. All matters on the consent calendar are considered routine and are to be approved with one motion unless a council member, staff member, or member of the public requests separate action on a specific item. Mr. Donahue, is there any items to be pulled from staff or any members of the public?
Yes, Mayor, we have one comment card for item 7.8.
Anything that staff would like to pull? Anything that council would like to pull? Then I would solicit a motion for the balance.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Donahue?
Councilmember Yao?
Yes.
Councilmember Lorimore?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Plot?
Yes.
Mayor Rigby?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
And then if we can hear 7.8, do we need to hear that or just the public comment?
I can give a quick
Okay.
report on it if you want.
Yeah, if you can, please.
The Chinese American World War II Veteran Congressional Gold Medal Act is a bipartisan legislation that honors the Chinese American veterans who served our country in World War II despite prevalent discrimination at the time. Over 20,000 Chinese American veterans answered the call to serve in the United States military when the country was attacked at Pearl Harbor. On December 20th, 2018, President Donald Trump signed into law the Chinese American World War II Veteran Congressional Gold Medal Act, which has been passed unanimously on September 12, 2018 by the U.S. Senate. It's Bill S-1050, and unanimously on December 12, 2018 by the U.S. House of Representatives. That's H.R. 2358. The bill passed the House 5 days before the 75th anniversary of the 1943 Magnuson Act, which repealed the regrettable Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. And I would just also note that 2 other cities, the cities of Monterey Park and Rosemead, passed similar resolutions recently.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation on that. If we can have the public comment on this item.
John Wong.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, I don't know if 3 minutes will be enough for me to say what I need to say, so I'll just try and do it my best. In January of 2017, let me introduce myself first. I'm John Wong with the Chinese American Citizens Alliance, and with me today is the former mayor of Monterey Park, Betty Chu, and one of our grand vice president, Charles Mao. They're sitting in one of those seats. Anyway, in 2017 in January, I got a call from the president of our alliance, and he says that we need to get a resolution to get a gold medal for Chinese American World War II veterans. And this would be the last time that Congress will ever award such a medal to a group. We have a very short window, approximately 2 years to do it. Once that is gone, it will never be done again. And at that time, he said to me, "You have to get Congressman Ed Royce to sponsor this bill because he's the chairman of Foreign Relations, and he's the only one that probably could get this thing done. And would you contact him and get him to sign on?" I said yes. At that time, the mayor of Monterey Park, or the former mayor of Monterey Park, was in Washington, D.C. for the inauguration of President Trump. And I told her, go ahead, talk to Ed Royce and get him to sign on this project. She did. Despite all the people there, she found him. And within 2 minutes, he said, yes, I will sign on to this bill. I will sponsor it, and I will push it through Congress. And we said, then a week later, we were in Fullerton in his office, and we were given the assignment to write and draft that legislation. We did. The mayor of Monterey Park, the former mayor, she herself was the principal author of that legislation. And 2 weeks later, in May, it was introduced in the Congress by Ed Royce in the House. And Senator Tammy, what's her name? Duckworth, introduced it in the Senate. And 2 weeks later, my alliance with 37 members from San Francisco to Washington, D.C., from Seattle to Mississippi, from Boston to the San Gabriel Valley, from Houston to Chicago, we descended on Washington, D.C. to lobby for this legislation. In 1 week's time, we came out with approximately 50 co-sponsors to this bill. And as you know, it passed the House and the Senate unanimously without a no vote, and that was because of our effort. And so I'm very happy that the city of Eastville will join us in celebrating this historical time, and it's an event that we should all cherish. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. If there's no further comments, then I would solicit a motion on this.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Donahue?
Councilmember Yao?
Yes.
Councilmember Lorimer?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Plot?
Yes.
Mayor Rigby?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, and thank you for your comment regarding this. Appreciate it, and for all your guys' work. Moving on to item number 8, public hearings. This evening, we do not have any public hearings, so we will be moving on to item number 9, city council business. And we will start with item 9.1, funding agreement and award of contract for Limonite gap closure. And this will be presented by Mr. Craig Bradshaw.
Good evening, Mayor Rigby and members of the City Council. The Limonite, let's see if I can get this to work. Arrow. The Limonite Gap Closure Project, it involves the completion of the street between Hellman Avenue and Archibald Avenue. There's been a portion that's been completed by First Industrial from Hellman to approximately what's called in the center of the screen there, Cucamonga Creek. This proposed project would complete the design, environmental work, and planning for the remainder segment. And the major portion of that project is the bridges design crossing Cucamonga Creek. Last fall, Adam Rush and previous council member Adam Rush and members of the city and members of the city staff met with the WR-COG staff and discussed this project at length. And they were successful in securing an additional $650,000 for this project. And the project at that time was added to the Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP, through the RCTC, because it was determined to be a very important project regionally. Tonight, what we're asking for is funding for this design work and planning and environmental work. Staff conducted the solicitation process for professional services, and Mark Thomas was determined to be the best firm available for the project. Riverside County provided an experienced bridge designer and project manager to help us with that selection process. Darren Johnson is here from Mark Thomas, and he is here available to answer questions that the City Council may have. And staff is requesting the City Council approve a professional services agreement with Mark Thomas for the planning, engineering, environmental work for the Limonite Gap Closure Project. And this includes bridge design over the Cucamonga Creek Channel. There's also abutment design toward the bottom of the screen. There's proposed pedestrian bridge. That's a part of the Edison easement. That would include the environmental work and abutment design for a future prefab bridge when funding is available. And there's an approximate amount of about $146,000, which includes $25,000 for that pedestrian bridge abutment design, which is not eligible with TUMP dollars, and then also for administrators for the staff to administer the contract. The total WRCOG funds that are available for this project is $1.54 million, and we're using the maximum available in this agreement. The recommendation is that City Council approve the funding agreement with WRCOG for the planning, engineering, environmental, and project management for the Limonite Avenue west of Archibald and bridge over Cucamonga Creek in the amount of $1.54 million. And that City Council approve a professional services agreement with Mark Thomas for the engineering and environmental work in the amount of $1.42 million approximately, subject to WRCOG approval at their board meeting on June 3rd. City Council will also to approve a budget amendment allocating the $1.54 million for the Limonite Gap Closure Project, and also allocating $25,000 in gas tax for the pedestrian bridge, and to authorize the city manager to execute the agreements that are attached, and to allow for minor revisions based on city attorney or WRCOG comments. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be glad to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bradshaw. Mr. Donahue, do we have any public comments on this item?
No, Mayor.
Any questions or comments from council? Councilmember Plott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Craig, for the update and for the information. Just a quick question. In regards to the planning engineering of this and the design of it, what is the time frame we think that it would complete, as far as the planning engineer, get it all together to kind of have it on some type of, that it's workable? Kind of what's that time frame look like?
The timeline shows 18 months. There's a big portion of that involves environmental permitting and the Corps of Engineers approval. We believe we can tighten that up to like 12 to 14 months if we can get those approvals through the Corps and get the permitting, getting in the permits.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Then at this time, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Donahue.
Councilmember Yao?
Yes.
Councilmember Lorimore?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Plott?
Yes.
Mayor Rigby?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Mayor, I just wanted to highlight, we're trying to be proactive in getting this project shelf ready and ready to go, as the development around there and the diet dairy may sell in the future, and a land use proposal might be on there. So we're working proactively with Western Riverside COG and our consultant to get this property, this roadway shelf ready to connect the first industrial with the rest of the city, and connect that nice east-west connection across into Chino. So just wanted to highlight that this is a major thoroughfare and a missing connection in our city, and it's an important part of our economic development and mobility and connectivity that are focused on our strategic plan.
Great, thank you. Look forward to it. Item number 9.2, strategic plan and quarterly update. And this is by Ms. Crystal Adams, please.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, and members of the public. I'm Crystal Adams, Senior Management Analyst. So speaking of the strategic plan, we are here doing the second quarterly update to highlight some of the accomplishments that we've achieved since the first quarterly update in February. So quick little timeline background. In August of 2018, council members of the public and staff discussed a strategic plan and set priority goals for the city. In September, council first heard priority 1A and 1B goals, and during the November 14th council meeting, the strategic plan was adopted along with the focused priority goals. And we had our first quarterly update to council in February, today being the second quarterly update. So just to remind you, our plan was broken down into 6 main targets: communication and community engagement, public safety, economic development, organizational development, finance and budget, and infrastructure. We further broke down these targets into priority levels, level 1A, 1B, level 2, and level 3. So to highlight some of the ones that we've completed, here we have level 1A, target 2, goal 4, to enhance traffic safety enforcement education. To date, we have had Eastville Police Department host bicycle and pedestrian safety assemblies to which participants K through 12 received ice cream gift certificates. And on April 17th, in a collaboration with both Chino PD and Ontario PD, we had issued 122 citations for distracted driving. Please stay off your cell phones while you're driving. Level 1A, target 4, goal 1 was to strengthen organizational development and effectiveness. Internally, we have started an employee recognition committee comprised of staff from multiple departments, and we launched the Employee of the Quarter program to celebrate our staff. Our first down to Employee of the Quarter was Crystal Losarelli from the Community Enhancement and Safety team. We also completed our strength development inventory / core strength training to learn more about ourselves and our leadership skills so we can work together better as a team, more cohesively as a team. Level 1A, target 4, goal 2 was to enhance customer service experience. In the lobby of City Hall, we have a small arcade table game. Since that purchase, it's been enjoyed by children as they wait for their parents to conduct business or while they're waiting for their passport appointment. This has also been enjoyed by adults as they reminisce about their childhood playing arcade games, and even by developers who have come to Eastville to meet with staff and discuss potential opportunities for the future. We have also started our passport service during business hours by appointment only to ensure that a resident has the proper attention of staff and to encourage a smooth transaction and experience in attaining a passport. Level 1A, target 5, goals 1 and 7 is to enhance transparency, to enhance public trust. We held our first budget hearing and workshop on February 22nd, and our second one will be later this evening. We have scheduled our financial priorities workshop on June 18th, and our public safety workshop will be on July 30th. Level 1A, target 5, goal 3, to continue to save money and expand reserves for future needs and goals. Later tonight, you'll be presented a fully balanced budget with a large reserve balance in both the restricted and committed categories of the reserve. We intend this budget to have growth and investment mindset to enhance the revenues to serve a balanced budget with the right size reserves. Level 1A, target 5, goal 4, to explore City Hall and Civic Center financing. Council has already created a subcommittee, and both this committee and staff have visited local city halls and private business campuses. We're currently doing a needs assessment to determine the best possible site location, and we are exploring private-public partnership opportunities. Level 1B, target 3, goal 9, diversify and enhance revenue streams. We have implemented our passport services to generate revenue, and we will continue to negotiate franchise agreements with our solid waste haulers. Completed goals, target 3, goal 2, to create a unique brand for Eastville. Tonight you viewed our new economic development video, and we coupled that with Shop Eastville rebranding to help promote Eastville as a place for new business and restaurants to flourish. We've also had several advertisement in regional print publications. Target 3, goal 7, to partner with the Chamber of Commerce on economic development. With the addition of our economic development manager, Kimberly Wright, we have started our business success roundtable meetings, attended ribbon cuttings, visited and toured local businesses, attended chamber breakfast meetings, and attended the National Day of Prayer breakfast. Goals in progress. Level 1A, target 3, goal 1, to elevate dining experience. Tonight's proposed budget sets aside funds to create a business incentive program. Staff has also conducted site visits to engage local restaurant owners to consider Eastvale as a location to grow and prosper. Target 6 Goal 1, to enhance mobility and connectivity. Tonight, the contract was awarded for the Limonite Gap project, and a design is expected to be completed within 18 months. We have also received active transportation funding, ATP funding, for trails on Scholar and Harrison to connect parks, schools, and a community center. We have also received $350,000 from SB 821 fees to fund the 65th Street Connectivity Project. Oops. One more thing on here. Lastly, on level 3, target 6, goal 1, to evaluate flow of traffic related to schools. We are currently analyzing the intersections at Schleisman and Hamner areas. We have launched a pilot program on the Desi Lane near the high school, and we're currently evaluating the connectivity across the 68th Street Bridge. Mayor, this item is submitted as a receive and file item. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Crystal. Any questions, council? I know it seems, I was just going back to slide number 6. I know it seems silly to have a little arcade thing up front, but it's kind of interesting because there was a meeting yesterday with a very successful restaurateur that came to City Hall. They were hoping to be able to announce some information regarding that in at our State of the City. But this restaurateur has 2 young girls that they were not able to get babysitting for, so they brought them with them, and instead of sitting in a boring business meeting, they were able to sit out front there and have fun and stay occupied without running through City Hall. So kind of a little interesting thing. So I think they had a good time. Thank you for that, and that is a receive and file. Councilmember Rial.
Crystal, I'm really sorry, and I know I should know this, but can you remind me, what is the pilot program on Desi Lane near high school again?
I can do that.
That's the 16 on the 16th slide.
Yes, we've been working with the Public Safety Commission as well as the Planning Commission to and the HOA out at Estancia. The high school students are cutting through that neighborhood at really high rates of speed and then parking throughout that neighborhood. And one of the things that we agreed to do was a pilot program to close down Desi Lane for a 3-week pilot program at the end of the year to see the impact it has on traffic on Citrus and access to the rest of the high school, as well as the pros and cons of that into the neighborhood. And so we work really closely with the HOA and our law enforcement, and we're evaluating right now. We did before studies, and we'll do after or during studies to identify the effectiveness and the pros and cons of that. And then we will bring it back and share those with the Public Safety Commission, and if we want to make something more permanent. But we did also work closely with the high school and let them know we're going to try this out as a pilot, and they were really excited that we were doing something as a pilot. They love experimenting, and so it's just a temporary thing that we're just trying for 3 weeks at the remainder of the year.
All right, thank you. And we don't need a motion for that at all. That's just receive and file. Moving on to item 9.3, fiscal year.
I just wanted to highlight, this is this quarterly update is a process that we promised the council when you approved the strategic plan November 15th of last year, and we said we'd bring it back every quarter. This is our second quarter, and we will continue to bring it back, highlighting everything that we're doing towards the strategic plan. And we appreciate your focused efforts in letting us know and clarity on the priorities that we're working on so that we can deliver those priorities to both you and the community. And so we're working on a number of initiatives throughout the community, and it's because of the great team that we have here. And I especially want to thank Crystal Adams, our senior management analyst. She's been with us almost a year now, and she has been doing an amazing job in the city manager's office, addressing and keeping all the different departments moving forward on the strategic plan and keeping me on my toes. So she anticipates what my thoughts long before I even have them. So she's been a great addition to our city manager's office and a great presentation tonight, Crystal. Thank you.
Great job, Crystal, and thank you to staff for doing this, as well as I think it's awesome that we do this and that we revisit this and that we're updated on this regularly. This was a recommendation that was by Councilmember Lorimore that we actually put this meeting together back in August, was it? At the time he was the mayor, and we really appreciate him leading that and putting this together. This has really given us direction, as you'll see in our budget. It's given us direction on our budget, direction on where we're headed as a city. So thank you, Councilmember Lorimore. Thank you to staff for keeping us up to date on this.
Well, totally team effort, city staff, city council, making it a reality. So excited to be part of a strong team.
Thank you. Councilmember Plott? No? I saw you about to press the button. Wasn't sure. So. All right, moving on to item 9.3, fiscal year 2019-2020 annual operations and capital improvement budget. And Mr. Reyna will present on this, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Yeah, we have before you today the final budget presentation. This really started back in January when we did our mid-year budget presentation. So this is 4 months of work presented before you to get this approved well before the July 1st fiscal year beginning. And before this, we also had 2 budget workshops, which Crystal mentioned we began back in February with our first budget workshop. Our second one was in March. And finally, on April 24th, we brought before you the first draft of this budget. And now we have before you the final budget presentation, which we'll go over tonight. So beginning with the agenda and what we're going to cover, we're first going to talk about the revisions that were presented before staff by council, what we got out of that last budget session. We're going to present today, go over that. We'll talk about where we stand again with our current financial positions and reserves. Those have been updated since our last presentation. We'll talk about where we stand with our estimated revenues, our proposed expenditures. We'll go again over the line item budgeted for our strategic plan. Crystal just mentioned that. We'll go over some of those items that we are budgeting in this particular budget. We'll talk about our capital improvement plan, and then finally we'll have some discussion and we'll get direction for the staff for us. So to begin, we'll start with the revisions that took place to the draft budget since our last presentation to the council. And so one of the things that we did, one of the direction we took from council was to look through the positions that we could defund and bring forward for some reductions in total personnel costs. So there was a total of 2.5 full-time equivalent positions that we did reduce, and the first one being the assistant city manager. That position has been defunded from the budget itself. And from there, with total personnel costs, fully burdened costs, that's about $240,000. And the other thing we did is we removed 3 of the intern positions. Each one of those intern positions is half a position, 0.5 FTE. So that's where the 1.5 comes from. So when we look at those 3, that's about $58,000 in savings. So we cut out about $300,000 in the personnel costs, going from about $4.1 million down to about $3.8 million.
Ernie, I have a question, just
Yes.
as you're going through this. I know this is kind of a somewhat lengthy presentation.
Sure.
If council has comments or questions, do you want us to wait until you're completely done, or
You can jump right in. That'd be fine with me.
Okay,
So
just you guys.
however you want to. Yeah, yeah.
If I can then on this, just real
Sure.
quick, just more of a comment, not a question. But thank you for doing this, especially to defund the ACM position right now. I know it's tough. We have a lot of initiatives going, but this just. I know it's not easy for Brian, and I appreciate him rolling up his sleeves and rolling them up even further and getting even dirtier, and being willing to get dirtier and defunding this. We'll see what the future brings, and if we can bring it back at a time. But I really appreciate that.
Of course. And one thing we'll do is down the line in the slides, we'll actually show you the progression of staff, where we were 2 years ago versus last year versus the mid-year versus today. And so we'll go over that as well. And so next, what I want to talk about is our update.
And I can only do it because I have a great management team lifting me up. So and the staff that's lifting them all up. So we are a great team, people-centric organization, and we're doing some amazing things because of the people we have in City Hall. We have one of the most robust, amazing government teams for the size of staff that we have. And we're doing some amazing things. So that's why we're making that sacrifice right now, and hopefully it will pan out well.
I'm going to give you some refreshers on some terminology that we use in accounting, so it's not so foreign to everybody. So the first thing I want to do is talk about, when you hear the word fund balance, what that means. And all that is the amount of revenues left over after you remove expenditures. That goes into fund balance, and that's when we talk about that. So when we talk about reserves, what we're talking about here are fund balances at July 2020 minus any restricted and committed funds. So we have three levels of reserve. We have a restricted, we have a committed, and we have unassigned. And as you'll see as we go through, our unassigned went down, but the overall reserves actually went up. And that's because we're putting more aside for the restricted and the committed portions as well. Those funds are not used, they get returned to the pot, and next year when we come back, we'll see what we have available for the entire amount. So we'll go over those as well. So speaking of reserves, what we have here is on the left, it shows where we were at last year when we presented the budget itself. So fund balance at 6/30/19 was a projection. So as you can see down on the bottom, reserves, that's the unrestricted portion. We sat at 6.9 million. But you can see right above that, we have different levels of restrictions and committed funds. So the one fund that is always restricted is fire. So we always put enough aside for fire funds. And that was there last year at 6.9. And the remainder of the items you can see are for emergency contingencies, which we have to put aside 50% of the adopted appropriations. And last year that was 9.7. Several of the other categories there, the Civic Center, public safety rate stabilization, pension alternatives, all that totaled to $26.8 million, which when subtracted from the original amount of fund balance, gave us that 6.9. And so this year when we come forward, we start with a similar amount of fund balance of 33.6. When we look at what we have actually set aside in committed and restricted funds, that amount is actually more than it was last year. That's 28.1 million. And so what we're left with in uncommitted type of reserves is $5.5 million. And so what you can see is a little reconciliation down on the bottom left there that shows you why that went down and where those funds are going to. And so when we decrease the amount in fire restriction, that actually caused the unrestricted to go up. But increasing emergency contingencies, the pension alternatives, and a decrease in fund balance actually brought us up to that difference of about $1.5 million in the unrestricted funds between this year and last year, the 6.9 versus the 5.5. And so looking at that reconciliation again, just in detail so you can see that a little bit better. Again, just what those items were that caused the unrestricted portion to go down. But again, in essence, what we did is actually increase the amount of the restricted and committed funds that we set aside. So these are just how we got to that total and the amount that differed from last year versus this year.
Ernie, I might also just say that we also, in the same process, purchased two properties that were in assets, and they don't show up in the fund reserves, but that we just diversified where we invested our money in the community, and so we have purchased two properties in the community without tapping into reserves.
Yeah, to that point, I wish there was a way that it could show that that's part of reserve, because the principle is this. You own those properties, and if for any reason you needed to liquidate those properties, again, I think it's like 5.5 million if you combine the two properties. Is that right, Ernie?
That's about right, yeah. Two properties.
That would be what you would actually have in your reserve. I mean, technically, you would, in essence, have that back in your reserves if you were to liquidate those properties. So it's not, I mean, or not maybe liquidate's the wrong word, but to sell those properties. So really, in essence, if you just took that one extra process and sold it, your reserves also can go into your reserves, and it'd be 5.5 million increase.
Correct. So
Just
you're
making
looking
sure
at
that
$11 million.
Yeah,
Correct.
just perfect. Yeah, just want to put that out there as well. But fortunately, for whatever reason, you cannot put real estate in reserves, so but it just hangs in a balance sheet, which is fine.
Right. Very good point. So what I'd like to show here, and this was displayed last time as well, is just how since the city's inception, blue line being the revenues and the orange being the expenditures, over time how the revenues versus the expenditures have looked, gives us a good idea of how the city's financial health has been going on since the beginning. And as you can see, those lines are coming closer together. And if you recall, at one of our previous meetings, we were saying by the year 24, 25, that's when we would kind of look at that year where things would flip. And that's what we're paying very close attention to right now. And as a matter of fact, in speaking of that, going out, projecting out a little bit further, beginning with next year, here's that point again where 24, 25, we're looking at where our expenditures would exceed revenues simply because of the growth. We're anticipating revenues to grow about 3% per year, but our expenditures grow anywhere between 6 to 9%. So at some point, if you do nothing, your expenditures will exceed your revenues, and that's kind of what we're paying a close attention to right now. So I just want to bring that to your attention.
And that's if we do nothing, and that's why this budget is really on a growth mindset of how do we grow our revenues and and invest in tomorrow today, and so that's one of the key components.
And Ernie, I know during the last meeting or 2 meetings ago, you explained to the council as to why our revenues is increasing by approximately 3% per year. But do you mind just repeating that for the public? And
Sure,
maybe
yeah.
some of them were not here last time. It's not that we are just purchasing arcade machine.
Correct. So in terms of revenues, right now, the city's biggest source of revenue for the general fund is sales tax, makes up about a third of our total cost. So we know that with whatever is purchased in the city, that's going to grow. So we're going to have a little bit of growth for sales tax revenue there. Property tax is actually number 4, I believe, in terms of our overall percentage, like 9%. So we know that if the economy is strong, then property tax is going to continue to increase, but in times of when the economy is not so great, that will actually go down. There's just various other types of revenues, including our VLF funding. We know that that's also variable that can go up and down. But in general, when we look at all of our revenue types, which we'll examine in a few slides, we'll look at where those revenues are at. On average, they will increase 3%. When we look at expenditures, typically anything you have in terms of contracts, those are always going to increase at a steady rate, maybe 1 to 3% per year. But there's 2 that we had mentioned before, public safety. Those are a little more volatile, if you will, where they increase more to 6 to 9% every year. So either the Riverside County Sheriff contract or CAL FIRE contract, those will increase at a faster rate than anything else. And we know that if we don't do anything else with them, those expenditures will catch up to us and exceed the revenues. And that's why we project out that graph the way we do. So on to the estimated revenues for fiscal year 1920 and taking into account any revisions we may have made since the last year. So when we look at these are all of our categories of revenues, not just general funds, but all the funds that we have. And looking at these, this is in totality, including any transfers that we may have had going to different funds. And so when we look at each individual fund, the 4 funds we do have, we see that our general fund is going to come in about $24.5 million roughly. The fire fund will bring in about $6.3 million. Special revenue funds will bring in about $9.6. And our capital project revenue will have about $1 million. So what we're looking at for the city's budget and revenue is about $41.3 million in anticipated revenues. And as I mentioned before, in terms of what types of revenues the city brings in, our largest single source for the general fund is sales tax. And 9.7, that equates to about 32% of the total general fund. And next in line after that would be our intergovernmental. What's made up of that is VLF funding, basically. So our VLF funding is closing on $5 million, and that's about 16% of our total general fund revenues there. Next would be our license permits and fees, that type of stuff in that category for $3.5 million. And then number 4, like I mentioned, is actually property tax, because when we split out our property tax from the fire fund into the general fund, we only receive about $3 million to the general fund from property tax. So in total, the general fund is looking at about $24.5 million for revenue. This is just a pie chart showing you what the revenue type percentages are. It shows you where they all stand, how we get them in, and the percentages of each one. So then looking at this particular general fund revenues does not include the transfers. And so we want to compare last year's to this year's. And so at last year, we were at 21.2. And this year, we're looking at 23.8. So that's about a $2.6 million increase, or about 13% in the general fund in revenues. So shifting our attention over to...
Before you go on to expenditures, just on revenues, just for the public's information, can you share a little bit on going back couple slides to the pie chart, the property taxes.
Yes.
On how much of that we actually get of a city, from, how much of that the city actually gets out of the total property taxes?
Sure.
The resident pays?
Sure, yeah, so when property taxes are paid in the city of Eastville, it goes into two buckets. So the fire fund will get most of that, and then they get about, of the 1% that you'll pay, they take in about 6% of what you actually pay in that amount. The general fund then gets about 2.5% of that 1%. So we did that little exercise where the average assessed home in Eastville was about $580,000. Of that amount, the general fund from each person paying property taxes was getting about $500 per household. So that's how we equate to that amount.
Perfect, thank you.
I want to kind of, if you don't mind for a second, I want to paint a picture just for a minute to the public to kind of put that in perspective. I think it's an important principle to address. Off the top of our head, I think someone's going to know this answer. How much of our land in Eastville is actually residential? I know it's a vast majority, but if you knew the percentage off top, I can't remember.
A lot.
It's a lot.
If you
like
look
numbers,
from
but-
it's a technical term. It's a lot. If you look from an aerial
it's the vast
perspective,
majority, and I think we all know
most of ours
that we can
are
understand.
residential.
So here, think about this. We can all agree that the vast majority of our land is residential. Think about how much we get from property tax right there. Think about how much little retail space we have and how much we actually get from it. So, kind of answer the question is, the remaining lots of lands that we have left, what should we be focusing on? If you're looking at that. You want to shoot out the answer?
We really need to focus on sales tax and transit occupancy tax, which isn't
hence-
even in that pie chart
TOT.
yet.
And hence the video, hence the marketing, hence all that, why that is so crucial. When you see that property taxes, homes, they're single-family homes, and to be frank, they're losers in the sense of your growth in the economy, or your growth in our local economy. They do not help at all whatsoever. In fact, there's more expenses that we pay into every single-family home than we actually get out in revenue. That's even the bigger picture. Sales tax is how you win. That is how you sustain yourself for the years to come. Just wanted to make that point because I think that chart says it the best. And anyone that lives here in Eastville knows we are far predominantly single-family homes and residential and very little retail, so.
If I could add on to that, I agree with the assessment. That being said, the city of Eastville, we are a young city. We have grown to critical mass at this point. The reason that we have opportunities that we have today in terms of retail, commercial, is because we have that housing base. So we have gotten to this point, and now we are looking to capitalize on this opportunity that is there, and the market is ripe, and we have we have great things in store. So,
Clint, I apologize. You're absolutely right, and sometimes I get so one-sided where we're at right now, but you're absolutely correct. I don't want to sound so negative against that. It's just at the point we're at, you're absolutely right. So thank you. I appreciate the other perspective.
We did
You're right.
a presentation earlier in the spring, and a single family home generates about 1/3 of the revenue and about 2/3 to 3/4 of the expenses for the community, and that is why we need high density residential. That is why we need commercial retail. That's why we need hotels to help support those expenses. But it's the residential that are the customers of those things, and so we have to. There is a yin and yang there to help, but when we have projects like the Leo property and the Hamner Place property, and we're looking at how do we create the best revenue or the highest revenue per acre for those with sales tax and TOT, we're really looking to do that to enhance the services and the programs that we have for this community and how we serve our residents. And so it has to be a really good balance. And so as we bring in retail, or we bring in condos, or we bring in higher density or senior housing, or whatever we might bring in, or what might come to us in some of these projects, we have to be careful of the not in my backyard, because we need those land uses to make our city whole financially. And you know, there's not too many cities in the state of California that grew at the rate that Eastville did. We went from 1 million cows to about 70,000 residents in a 15-year period, and there's not too many cities in California that did that quickly in a decade and a half.
Okay, so on to expenditures. So again, in totality, looking at the expenditures with the four funds that the city of Eastville has, projecting out what we believe is going to be those costs for the year. We're looking at 23.1 million for our general fund, our fire fund about 6.8 million, which we'll jump into a little bit. Special revenue expenditures of about 4.7, $1 million in our capital project expenditures for total agency expenditures of roughly $36.1 million. This next slide, oh, it's not that one, sorry. That one. This next slide is just a pie chart showing you how the majority, the three major types of expenditures make up what we have in our expenditure types. First being operations, so largely driven by operations, that's 72%. Of our total budget, our personnel cost makes up 11%. And then everything else, being capital projects, being transfers, make up the remaining 17%. So I wanted to show you where those all go to.
Can you share just a little bit more of what that other is?
Sure, yeah. So like I mentioned, that would be capital projects, so capital items that we're purchasing larger dollar amounts, and then any of the transfers that come in and out of funds. They're labeled as that. So those are the other two types that we have.
Are there any specifics that you have in mind of, sorry to put you on the spot, but just
Sure, yeah, no.
capital projects or
So
anything?
in the fire fund, we have a couple of those that I'll be sharing with you that make up some of that. And then within each department, we might have several dollar amounts in there, but the majority of them are probably within those the public safety items that are in that category. So when we get there, we can share with you as well. All right, so now looking at just the general fund, where we stand with that, again, the 18-19 version versus the 19-20 budget without transfers. What we're looking at is that we've actually increased about $2.5 million in expenditures, or roughly 13% here. And we're looking at just the mid-year increases. So we increased about $1 million, so about 5% at mid-year at 18-19 when we did that back in December or January. And so that's a large portion of that cost as well. So that was done at that point with the personnel costs. I wanted to point that out as well. So this chart is new, and I wanted to bring it to the council's attention because what it shows is since inception, our total staff versus staff that has been separated. So it's a historical personnel trend. So the green chart, the green bar there shows total number of employees. So up along the top, running up and down, total number of employees against the bottom fiscal year. So you can see the total number of employees, total staff in the green, and the turnover on the blue one. And you can see one year we actually had more people turnover than we actually had total number of staff. So I think 10 people actually came and left, and 9 people were actually in the staff. So we're monitoring what that turnover looks like. And as you get closer to the current year, you can see this year, 18-19, I believe we had 1 person leave, and we have a total of like 27 actual staff. So turnover is a big soft cost because there's a lot involved with that you can't really quantify, but a lot of it is training. A lot of it is just, losing out on the employees you had. And we think that things are getting a lot better. And then we wanted to point out this graph to you because it's a pretty powerful statement on what it might say.
Ernie, thank you for that. And yeah, I'm happy that we have stabled out here. I know you said you can't really quantify it, but I believe there have been studies on this. Are you familiar with them in terms of costs associated?
I have heard of some, but we just haven't quantified those here. We know of some, but.
Okay. All right, thank you.
When you lose an employee, it can be 6 to 12 months of lag time from when you go out for recruitment to do the interviews, to bring on a new employee, to get the employee trained up and really self-sufficient in the organization. And so it is very detrimental. And you can see there were years when 50% of our employees were turning over, and one year we had 100% of our employees. And I want to highlight that this is in thanks to the city council. You made some key decisions this last year in recognizing the employees with the cost of living rate that hadn't been done in the city for a long time. We also put people in the right positions in the organization. We put the right structure in this organization. We gave people opportunity to grow in this organization and see themselves in this organization in the future. We've invested in training and development in this organization, and we're right-sizing this organization. When you burn people out, they leave, and it is, you know, the number one reason people leave is because of their supervisor. And so we are developing our leaders, our managers, our supervisors, our teams, and developing those people to their highest potential and capacity, and really empowering and engaging our teams and becoming a people-centric organization. And so it's really thanks to you, because you guys identified that in the strategic plan and have given us the tools and resources to be an effective government agency. Thank you very much.
It's funny you mentioned about the supervisor thing. We actually just had a study where I work at Bay Alarm, and that's exactly what they were telling all our directors and managers and leaders in the company was, never, I mean, there's multiple reasons why someone could leave, but the number one typically has to do with supervisor. So it just kind of was a clear reflection on how, at work, how was I doing to make sure I was avoiding attrition. The touch on, I'm not going to try to be redundant, but again, it's very important why 18 and 19 looks like the way it is. We lost one person. That gap is what you want to always target for. You never want to be where the lines are close when we're looking at this type of graph. Yeah, I would love to see what those costs are, because the costs aren't going to show up in personnel. The costs are going to show up in various aspects of our expenditures, you know, and it may take a lot of work, but I think it would be good to find that out. Overall, the problem with what you see here, and this is my assessment, and take it for what it is, there will be opinions on it, but the organizational structure was dealt through one leader only and no really departmental heads before that. And if you're an employee and you're in that type of structure, imagine yourself that all you have the opportunity is that top spot, the city manager spot. And if there's a position that goes up anywhere else outside the city, you're gone. You will take it because there's never an opportunity. That is the attrition, right? That typically what happens is you don't find that. As a council, we saw this as an issue, a concern, and at the same time, we could hit a couple birds with one stone, more than two. We can create a culture. We can actually get a little more talent in as far as how we hire, pay a little bit more, right? Not over, but above the average is probably the sweet spot. And the key thing is to create organizational structure. So what have we done last year? Why do you see the expenditures of personnel go up? We hired directors. We hired managers. Now when you put people in, and I see the staff nodding their head, it's kind of funny because it's true. Now the people that you hire in have something to promote to. And now you're not worried about people. You still always are worried about people can always leave and go somewhere else. And that will always be a problem. We will have attrition. Hopefully it's never at the level that we've seen in the first couple of years. But the point is that there is room to grow in the city of Eastville. And that is the most important message you can give your staff. What you do is you create institutional structure, you create longevity in knowledge, you create support, you create a team, and as those people stay together, your organization gets stronger, they get smarter, they get more efficient, right? Any person that deals with organizational structures will tell you the exact same thing I am telling you. This is all the stuff I get trained on almost at least once a quarter, and it's exactly these principles, and I'm glad to see the city of Eastville is doing the same exact thing, and I think it's redefining how we look at things. And we could see it just in the output of what's going on. We would do one project at one time. We're running 6, 7 projects now, right? And that's a big deal. That's a testament to how efficient we can become. So I'll add more later when we get to the comments about it when it comes to revenue, but just want to point out that. I didn't know that graph was actually coming up. That's pretty solid. So good job on that, Ernie.
Yeah, I think this really graph tells a great story, and the costs of attrition and supporting our teammates and growing our teammates and creating opportunities for our teammates to thrive in our organization. And it's a real testament. We have a city clerk that used to be here, and he chose to come back here because of the culture that's being created here. You know, it was really interesting. If you take a tour of our city hall, in his first few weeks here, he help really take the leadership role in cleaning up our city hall. He also saves us about $500 a month because he just cleaned out our 2 storage units in the city of Norco. So we're no longer paying rent in Norco for our storage units because we have a property at Offlich where we can store that for free. And so in his first couple weeks here, he took a real leadership role and had a great early win in his role and made that happen without costing the city a lot of money to do that. So I want to thank Mark Donahue, our city clerk, in making that happen. He really surprised me last week. And if you walk around our city hall, it's a lot cleaner and a lot more organized. It was kind of a clutter place.
Okay, moving on. And the reason why we bring that up, because we transitioned to expenditures, we are talking about personnel. So we wanted to first start off with that particular slide as we transition to where we stand and different types of expenditures, different types of categories. And what we're looking at here is a comparison of the adopted budget from last year, the 18-19 budget. And we wanted to compare that to where we stood with mid-year budget and what took place at that particular time. And so what was brought forth at that time was personnel cost. And what we did is we added quite a few positions that we'll go over at that time. And at that point, we went from 2.7 million to about 3.7. So about $1 million increase at that point for the personnel that we did increase. Everything else remained the same at that point. And then the next slide, what we're going to show you is what we did from mid-year, December, January till now, what increased. So with respect to that same personnel, we actually did cut back some of the personnel costs. And so what we're looking at is just an increase of $82,000 as opposed to mid-year. And then looking at operations, we took the operations and increased that about 1.5 million. And the outlay itself actually went down about $81,000. So total expenditures before transfers went up roughly 1.6 million. So in total, and looking at the bottom as well, total funding uses, total dollar amount, including transfers down at the bottom, actually went down about 1.3 million. And as mentioned before, in talking about authorized positions and where we stood. So first going back 2 years of what was approved, and we look at these by department, if you will, and the departments that we're talking about are the city manager's department, the clerks, finance, and community development. Community development was something that we're creating now. But as you can see, going over the years, we've increased, beginning in 17-18, we were at about 17 3/4 staff. We grew to 22 staff last year at this time at the 18-19 budget. And then we grew at mid-year. We went up to 31 staff. And then now with this budget, what we did is we effectively removed a 0.5 FTE in there. But we'll go over the detail of the positions that we added and the ones that we subtracted on the next slide. But as you can see, that does not include contract staff.
And I think we really need to highlight that the 31 staff there were budgeted, but we had a number of positions that were not filled. And so there's a difference between budgeted and actual costs for staffing. And so I think we need to be real crystal clear. We budget for the highest step of our staff, and we don't have all those positions filled. And so, but we do have ability to be nimble as a government should we need those positions filled.
Correct. And so looking at that, going back to mid-year and what we did with the new positions and how we got to that $993,000 increase, at that time, what we brought before council was some new positions, a total of quite a few you can see up there. So beginning with the community development director, we added that one in at that point, and that is now a filled position. We also brought forth the community enhancement and safety manager, and we have now filled that position. So that one's good to go. We also added in the community enhancement and safety officer, which has now been filled. We did the same with a community enhancement and safety technician, which has been filled. And then we brought forth 6 interns. So at the point, what we did is we filled 3 of them and left 3 vacant. And as you can see, we're actually going to leave 3 vacant on there. And there's some status changes that also took place. So the adding of the positions was about $700,000 of that. Status changes, taking some positions from part-time to full-time. You can see some of those there, including street sweepers, an accounting tech, a couple of communication specialists, and changing the emergency management coordinator to a specialist. So all total, the status changes were about $300,000 and change. In total for both of those categories is that roughly $1 million or $993,000. And the total increase from mid-year to now is about $82,000. So I wanted to point that out so you can see how we got to what we did from last year to this year in 2 different phases.
I think it's also, if you can go back to that, Ernie, real quick. We heard you loud and clear. We defunded. I will say interns are a great training ground and evaluation ground for us. But we still have 3 intern opportunities that we have in our quiver, so to speak. But we utilize the interns to do an evaluation of employees. It's like a long-term interview process, and it gives them an opportunity to grow in our community. And we've turned a lot of our interns into full-time employees because we hire exceptional interns. And so I just wanted to highlight that.
Yes. So looking at what we have done for this particular budget versus mid-year, we have a total of 4 positions that we're adding. And just a disclaimer that we put out there is that even though these positions are put in there, we always put them at the top step of every pay range. And this is the fully burdened cost, not just their salary, but includes benefits. We have 4 positions that we're looking at that are like to be added in there. And the first being the accounting manager within the finance department. The fully burdened rate there is $133,000. We have a management analyst we'd like to include in the community development department at $118,000. We have an executive assistant in the city manager's office of about $107,000, and an office specialist as well in the city manager's department for about $75,000. Those are the 4 positions we are adding. And as I mentioned before, we are defunding some of the positions, and this is how we're coming up to our net total. So the 2.5 FTEs that we did defund against assistant city manager within the city manager department of roughly $240,000, and the 3 interns, various departments, the 1.5 FTE equivalents is about $58,000. So all in total there was a reduction of about $300,000 in personnel costs from there.
Quick question.
Yes.
On going back a slide to the proposed positions. In a previous draft of the budget, we had a finance manager. That's been changed to an accounting manager, right?
Yes, the proper categorized name within the city is accounting manager. So it was just corrected to the accounting manager, but it's basically the same duties.
Perfect, thank you. And then the other question, just on general expenditures. If we go back to slide 20, what would it be, 22, 21, 22 there. Showing our adopted budget last year and then our proposed budget this year. For general fund expenditures, our proposed budget this year is actually less than our adopted budget
That's
last
correct.
year.
Yes, so that's because of transfers. What we did is we actually transferred more money into the capital improvement project fund because of the streetlights. So we don't have that big of a transfer this year. So the net effect is that it actually went down because of those transfers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this is an expanded discussion on what Crystal's presentation was just on. So in talking about strategic plan, we did speak about that. And I'd like to go into detail about that. So back on August 21st, we did have a strategic plan meeting where we discussed some target items. And just as a recap of what those were, we did have the 6 items we just heard from Crystal. And again, they're up there for review, but that's communication, public safety, economic development, organizational development, finance, budget, and infrastructure. Items of priority 1A and 1B were approved by council back on September 26th. And on November 14th, the whole strategic plan was approved. So using that as the basis for our budget to program those funds needed, we went ahead and took the next step and programmed some of those items into the budget, the top priority items. And as you can see, there's about $3.5 million in this budget that we've included for strategic plan items and the various different categories that we'll go over. First one being to elevate fine dining experience, which I will give detailed information on each one of those, that we did place about $500,000 in the budget for, to engage the community feedback of $50,000, enhance mobility and connectivity, $1.25 million, a match to our $8 million active transportation grant of $1.6 million. We put funds in there to build City Hall of $100,000 and $75,000 to strengthen organizational development. And as I mentioned, I wanted to give you examples of which each one of those were. And starting with our general fund, so you understand which are coming from our general fund and which are coming from the capital improvement project fund. There are 3 of these that will be coming out of the general fund. And as you can see there, the first one is the elevate dining experience. We'll also have the engaged community feedback and the strengthening of the organizational development. So all in total, coming out of the general fund is $625,000 of that $3.5 million. So beginning with the Elevate Dining Experience, what we did is create a business restaurant incentive program that we've included in the Community Development Department under the Economic Development Division. You'll see a line item in there for $500,000 called Business Incentive Program, and that's what that is inclusive of. The next one is engage community feedback.
Just since that's a huge priority in our community to elevate our fine dining, if you know of any restaurateurs that want to come and want to have an incentive in our community, please have them reach out to myself or our economic development manager, Kimberly Wright. We'd love to talk with them, or our Mayor Pro Tem Brandon Plott, because we'll go out and eat.
We do have some very, very good quality time that they're looking at us right now and in serious discussion. So
we have a number of serious discussions having that.
Mm-hmm. So then shifting our attention to the engaging community feedback, we did place $50,000 in the city manager's department under the communications division, and that's to continue conducting the annual customer satisfaction survey, and that's what that amount is for. And then finally, within the general fund is the strengthening of organizational development. We broke that up into two different line items totaling $75,000. The first, it was decided that we'd put $25,000 in the city manager's department under the talent and special projects division, and we're going to create a tuition reimbursement program for our employees. That's a reimbursement program where our employees can go back to school to earn a certificate, a degree, a master's, any kind of a reimbursement for further education that applies to the work that they're working on currently. And then also another $50,000 is going to be placed in that same division in talent and special projects. And that'll be to invest in our employees and establish a leadership program, which will include coaching, training, and strengthening of employee skills. So then shifting our attention over to the capital improvement plan, what was budgeted there, as opposed to our general fund, we have about 2.95 or about $3 million that we've placed in that capital improvement plan. And as you can see, three of those up there are the enhanced mobility and connectivity, the match to the ATP grant, and the building of City Hall. And so first I want to start with the enhancing of mobility and connectivity, the $1.25 million. What we're doing here is breaking this up into two pieces. The first part would be the $1 million, which would be included in the capital improvement budget, and that's to update the city's general plan, which we're calling Eastvale 2040. Another $250,000 is included in the CIP budget, and that's to enhance our to update and enhance the Trails Master Plan. So broken up into two different parts there. Shifting our attention over to the ATP grant. And again, in order to earn this grant, the city had to put up its own money of $1.6 million. But by doing so, we're granted $8 million of that. And what that really does is, it requires a match, like I said, of 1.6 from city sources. It'll provide installation of trails for people walking and riding bicycles along Scholar Way and Harrison Avenue, with the city limits of approximately 5 miles. What this is going to do is connect our neighborhoods, schools, and parks. And that is the purpose of the ATP grant that we have here in the city.
Ernie, just for clarification on that, so that means we're going to have a total of 9.6 million for ATP projects? Or is it total 8?
It's total 8.
Total 8.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, in order to get that, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
we had to spend 1.6
1.6
to get 6.4.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, this is the first ever ATP grant that the city has ever been successful with, and so, and I think it's one of the larger ones in the county that we were successful with. So this is a great way to bring state resources to the city to accomplish connecting our neighborhoods, our schools, our parks, things that are really important to families in our community.
Ernie,
Yes.
before we go on, so for this item, just to clarify, nothing has, these are proposed locations for these trails. At this time, nothing's been decided, correct?
These are the two locations that we applied for the grants to be, and that's what the state awarded us. These locations are what the state has identified as good options, and so and there were certain criteria and strings attached with these projects. How these projects are implemented has not been decided, and so what we are looking at is there were some people that said, oh my gosh, they're gonna be taking away travel lanes. We might not be taking away travel lanes. We might be we have a lot of excess asphalt on some of these roadways, because we have overly wide travel lanes in some of our areas. And so, we're gonna try to, maintain our traffic flow in our community, but also give people choices and options to enjoy our community. We've seen that where trails are installed in communities, the property values go within about an eighth or a quarter mile of that trail can go up anywhere from 5 to 10%. But it's also about creating an active, healthy lifestyle in our community and allow people to walk to school or bike to school or into our retail or connect with the Santa Ana River or with our future downtown Leal master plan. So.
Okay, excellent. But so what I heard is how it would be implemented is not yet decided. They would still have to come before council, and
there'll be a lot of community engagement. Okay. There'll be a lot of community engagement both on the design of these and how they will look and feel. And so we will work with the community, the Planning Commission, the Public Safety Commission, and the City Council.
excellent. Thank you.
Okay, and so next item is the building of City Hall. So 100,000 has been set aside in our capital improvement plan. What that will do is it'll be used to begin the process of selecting a new City Hall and library. And the cost of that will be to hire a consultant to conduct an on-site location assessment with a design for new City Hall and library. And I believe the needs assessment has begun. Yes, we've actually begun the process of the needs assessment.
And we began it based on direction from City Council to get started on it at one of the budget workshops. And so all of you nodded your head, encouraging me to get it started on it early.
And where are we in terms of money set aside for actually building?
We have $8 million set aside in restricted reserves for building our City Hall and library, which isn't enough to build that yet. But we are exploring a lot of different opportunities on how to do that. And we've had some developers approach us about a public-private partnership or what's often called a lease buyback, where they build a building for us on our property and we lease it for a certain amount of years, and then at the end we own it. And that's a way to it's like kind of having a mortgage, but you own the building already, but you're just leasing it for a while. So it's a way to give the community a library and a city hall and a community building that they can be proud of. So that would be probably one of the faster ways to do it if we wanted to do it that way.
Is this 100,000, is it coming from the general fund, or is it coming from that specific fund that we have money set aside at this point?
So these particular funds are set aside in the capital improvement plan, so it's not in the general fund. So
Okay.
These are some sort of grant related, any of the grants that we can pull from in the special revenues where we're going to use. These are not general fund monies.
It's not from the money that we have set aside for the building?
No, they did not touch the reserves to do that.
Excellent, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So shifting our attention now.
And in fact, we're doing our site selection and needs assessment for under $25,000. So we're getting a lot of value for that.
So shifting our attention now over to public safety and where we stand with that. As you may recall, back at our second budget workshop in March, we talked about public safety and where we were going with that. And beginning first with fire, we had 4 options to choose from, and the council recommended that we go with option 3, which is adding a medic squad at Station 27. And so that cost for the CAL FIRE contract would be about $6 million. So all in total, for fire, including operations and capital items that we needed, was running about $6.8 million. So the additional cost to bring that medic squad to Station 27 was about $1,069,000 over our contract price from the prior year. So I wanted to bring that to your attention there.
And just for clarification on that, one of the reasons why the medic squad is it's a faster response vehicle for medical response than an engine. We have a long city all the way up into the finger, up to Costco and Amazon and the Walmart fulfillment center. with the population growing up there and the retail growing up there, we're getting more calls for service, and it allows us to get a medical response unit to that area as quickly as possible. A medic squad can slow down and accelerate faster than an engine. As you can imagine, one's a very heavy vehicle and one's a more nimble vehicle. It also allows us to have, if Station 27's engine was out on a call, it allows Stations 31's engine and this medic squad to respond to a fire and have 2 in and 2 out, and have full service for an emergency evacuation or a search and rescue in a fire, or rescue operations in a fire. So we're really excited to enhance our medic and fire response. The medic unit will have the fires available as well.
So then with public safety, the other item is police. And so we currently are with the Riverside Sheriff contract. Back in the second workshop as well, we spoke about options for police contract, and the city decided to stay with the Riverside Sheriff's contract for fiscal year 1920. And so what we're budgeting for that is approximately 10.3 million. And what that does is it includes a retroactive increase from 18-19 of about 2.19 million. And the 5% increase for the current year, 1920. So when you do the math on that I've done on the bottom there, you can see where the 10.3 million comes from, beginning at where we budgeted at from last year of 9.6 to derive at 10.3 for this year.
And just for clarification, Ernie, there was never a decision made on to depart the Riverside Sheriff's Department. So you said that the council made the decision to stay with the Riverside County
Right.
Sheriff's Department. That's been our contract.
Right.
We haven't made a decision
Correct.
To ever
Correct. You're
depart
correct. Yes.
right now. So
Yes.
I mean, we're continuing our contract with them.
Okay. And then finally, just as a recap for the capital improvement plan, categorizing everything that's included with that outside of the strategic plan, looking at the CIP plan itself. We have several categories that we want to touch upon that are included in that CIP plan. First, starting with the roadway safety, what we have in there is that ATP grant and match that we spoke about. We also have a Limonite interchange gateway feature and miscellaneous trail improvements. So the total for that category that we have budgeted is approximately $10.2 million there. Moving on to street improvements in the CIP budget, categories include the Limonite Gap, the Schleisman and Hamner transition, and street name signs for a total of $4.1 million there. Next category being citywide maintenance. We have a budget there of $1.65 million. That includes the miscellaneous traffic safety, fiber broadband infrastructure, communication master plan, and the Eastvale 2040, the Eastvale master plan for that. And then finally, we have our land building and facilities and equipment category. 2 categories listed in there for a total of $600,000. We have our civic center site planning, as well as the Alfledge floodplain modification. Before I get to questions and discussions, there's one thing I wanted to bring to the council's attention, and that was on that historical personnel trend that I neglected to mention on there. So with respect to this particular budget, we have 2 positions that are currently exempt status, that in this budget we're going to be moving over to non-exempt status. So I wanted to let you know of that because they were previously indicated to be exempt. And so those 2 positions are the assistant city clerk and the senior accountant. There's no change in their salary. It's just changing from a supervisor status to a lead status. But because of that, they're no longer exempt, and we want to move them to the non-exempt category. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to take any questions you or the council may have.
Thank you, Ernie. Thanks for that presentation. I know that the budget is very encompassing in time, effort, and everything. So thank you, to your team, to all staff for participating in this. Before we get to questions and discussion from council and public comment, I had the opportunity to meet with our city manager and Ernie, was it this morning? The day's been so long, I don't remember if it was this morning or when it was, but one of the things that our city manager shared regarding the budget is that sometimes city budgets, the city manager basically takes the charge of it and sets the budget and says, this is what we're gonna do. Brian's done something a little bit different and has made it more of a team effort and has involved the entire staff. So this is an encompassing budget, and this is not just a city manager's budget, but this is what our staff members, our supervisors, our directors, our managers feel is a strong budget for our city. So I think it's very important to realize that this is a team budget. This isn't just an individual department budget or someone putting it together. So I appreciate Brian in taking the charge, but also empowering our staff members, our directors, managers, supervisors, and being able to contribute to this budget. So I think that's very important to note that the way that we did this budget this year. So thank you for that. With that being said, I would like to turn to Mr. Donahue and see if we have any public comments regarding this.
Yes, Mayor, we have one comment card from Sean Perilla, but I believe he left.
Is Mr. Perilla here? No, with him not being here. Do we have any other comments?
No, Mayor.
Council. Councilmember Yao.
Thank you, Ernie. This is great, and this definitely very helpful. But other than that, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, and I know we bombarded you with a lot of questions throughout the process. So, Councilmember Lormore.
I really appreciate the PowerPoint. It breaks down the visual aid, breaks this down to something much more manageable. Some of the highlights that I really appreciate, the public safety aspect, bringing on the pneumatic squad is going to be wonderful. And we have that vehicle that we'll be able to utilize, which will be great. One of the things, part of the economic development that we're shooting for, the elevating of the dining experience, I think that's going to be wonderful. And to attract fine dining and bringing in businesses to town, those that we want in town, to incentivize them. I think all of that is wonderful. Also, I think this is important. One of the things that it's, as city budgets go, the $100,000 line item for the building of City Hall, the site location. This is something that we have a number of new council members. There's been talk about placing City Hall and the library and different iterations of that in different locations around the city, and coming to a conclusion once and for all, figuring out where we're going to put this. I think that this is going to be very helpful and is important, because this is, of course, the future of the city. And one thing that I've talked with fellow council members about is when we do build a city hall, a permanent one, we want it to be the permanent one. We don't want to have to continue to pick up and move on to the next one. So I appreciate you highlighting that in the PowerPoint and having this city staff for including this as part of the budget. And I'll end my comments there. Thank you for all your hard work on this. I know it's, well, it's impressive. Thank you. Team effort.
Councilmember Plott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think last time when we had a budget discussion, I went on this long diatribe about something that Jocelyn said in 3 words. That we're investing in our city was the 3 words, or 4 words, whatever. Yeah, that's 5 words. Yeah, this is awesome. Some of the things I was reflecting on this budget, went through the packet. Yeah, I made a lot of points that I think, obviously one of the key things is, it's also to be noted, this is when this does get finalized and adopted, it'll be the fastest budget we've ever done in the city. And I think that's something that is a kudos to our staff, really getting this thing done and out early and get the ball rolling. The other thing I really want to bring up, and to me it strikes a chord, and I don't know, I can't say this prior to me becoming on council, But we've always had goals in the city of Eastville, and there's all these different goals, and we had them listed. The problem is that they're just they're just words, because the goals never aligned with any budget we've ever done. I don't know if that kind of makes sense. Like, if you have goals, but if your budget doesn't reflect your goals, then they're just words. They're not goals at all. This is the first time that so this being the third time doing this, this is the first time I can recall that there's actually, the goals are aligned with our budget. It's very important because I consider our city being goal-oriented and results-driven. And I think this budget is an absolute indicator of that. And I think it's crucially important. But everything seems sound. Our revenues, our general fund revenues, our overall revenues are good. You know, there's just kind of highlighting $5.6 million in overall revenues, right? Or sorry, net revenues, right? After expenses, 1.7 net in general fund revenues. It's solid. I think the thing we'll see though is that, you know, there's been an increase. It's just a little less than $1 million if you take the mid-year budget to now in personnel costs. I think the thing that's not really being considered is there is a decrease in our contract staffing, and I think it's about $90,000 less. I think we're going to see probably more as our community development program or our team develops. I think we're going to start seeing a decrease in those costs and contract service. I'm pretty positive that you will probably see that occurring. The one last thing I want to bring up, and I kind of want to in some way encompass, I think what I feel this budget is and where the direction of Eastville is growing, and kind of looking at comments on social media, is sometimes people have a tendency to look at the net revenue, maybe what it was in prior years versus what it is this year, and the expenses going up, the revenues going up, and maybe there's a closer gap between the revenue and expenses, even though there's, I believe, $1.7 million differential between revenues and expenses. Here's the way I look at it. I think Eastville, I think we run our city like a business. I think Robin Leafblood said it the best in the video that we had, that she owns Eastville Athletics. She said she wanted to reinvest in her business when she came to Eastville. I think we're wanting to reinvest in our city, and I kind of explain what that means. There's really two things you can look at if we're looking at it as a business. You look at profitability and you look at growth, and they're not one and the same. They're actually counterintuitive to each other. I think in government, I gotta be careful because the goal of government's not to be wholly profitable. But the way I would define it is the difference between revenues and expenditures and how much you put in reserves would be considered profitability. If that's your drive, you want to put more in reserve. And some people measure that as the goal, right? I think you need to look at what we're looking at is we're not necessarily in a profitability mode. We are profitable, we're putting money away in the reserves. What's important is we're defining growth, right? And growth is the key indicator of what we need to look at. So if you look at the opportunity we have in our city, right? The economy's been arguably the economy's been well since 2012. Restaurants are moving, they're growing, right? They're expanding their establishments, big and small, all different types of retailers. And yet we really haven't achieved what we wanted to do. Now's the time because who knows how long the economy's gonna work, right? We need to get out there, market ourselves, brand ourselves, invest in our staffing to really put ourselves out there to capitalize on the future revenues, the future sales tax, the future transit occupancy taxes from hotels. That in order to battle the cost of inflation, the cost of services, you have to take this time now. We have the opportunity to do it, and we're still putting money away in reserves. But we have to spend money in growth in order to reap the profits and the benefits to years to come. That's the direction. And I think I'm trying to answer this because of social media comments. I'm trying to answer that. That is what we're looking at. It is a moment in time where we are looking to grow. It may not be reflective in how profitable you're going to be. In the future, it will show. There's still profit, just not as much. And that's a sound decision that council has made, that we've gone in this direction. I want to make it clear to the public that is the direction we are going in. And the budget that you're seeing here tonight is reflective in that nature. We are looking to grow, right? And I mean grow, sales tax, transit occupancy tax, and however we get there, and providing better services to agencies, to businesses, to residents. So all those things. And so I'm gonna leave the comments with that. Jocelyn, if you come up with 4 words, I'm gonna be really upset. No, you're good. I'm worried. I'm worried. I know you're thinking right now.
Summarize what he said, Jocelyn.
Yeah, 4 words. So thank you, staff, for putting out an awesome budget. In my opinion, it's the best budget that we've seen, right? If we wanted to put X amount of reserves, we could do it. But we don't feel that's a smart thing to do right now. We need to take the time to invest and grow while we can, because who knows what's gonna happen the next couple of years. You have to take advantage of this opportunity that we have. And I believe that Eastvale is so sellable. It's easy. It's an easy sell. And I have a ton of confidence in our residents that they'll support whatever we put in here. And I think that's an easy decision to make. It's not hard at all. So that's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Plott, and I think you said it great. The fact of investing. So I think with us investing into the city of Eastville is what we are really focusing on right now, and we're doing a great job with it and focusing on that. I do have a question just on the fire fund. There is a section for $111,000 in the budget, and I just wanted to. Can you share with the public what that is? Just a little bit more of what that's focused on.
Absolutely. So contained within the fire department's budget, there's a capital item in there for about $111,000, as you mentioned. And so what we're trying to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tovar, what we did and put in there is some auto pulses, defibrillators. Is that correct? So we have 3 of those at $15,500 that total about $46,500. We have some thermal imagers, 2 of those at $10,000, and then we also put in there a mobile barbecue grill for the community. So when you add up those totals, those are the items that make up the $111,000 in that capital item right there. So it's something that they've needed for quite a while, and we're getting those items that they needed.
Great, thank you. One last question, comment. There is, in the draft budget, there is a capital project overview sheet. One of the items, just to note, that talks about in there is electric charging stations, just for the public's information. I know there's been a lot of talk with electric vehicles, and if we have electric charging stations in the city. We are working on that, and that's a thing that I was very glad to see in our draft budget, that we're working on that. In fact, on here it says that we're hoping by May 2021, yes, that sounds like a long ways out, but before you know it, it's gonna be here, but by May 2021, that project's gonna be complete to have some electric charging stations. We're also working with our developers to make sure that they're starting to include those kind of things to be able to provide that as we see more and more electric vehicles coming aboard. So very, very happy to see that. Ernie, sorry to steal the thunder from you and take anything away from you. I know you've done a great job, but I also would like to recognize your staff that's done a great job.
Certainly.
I think, yes, you manage them, you direct them, you do a great job, but we do have one of the finance staff here, Maricela, so thank you for being here. Thank you for all you've done in helping with this budget. I know that it puts a heavy burden on our finance staff altogether, so the other staff members in your team that are not here, if you extend our appreciation to them in just putting this together, it's
most certainly will.
It's heavy lifting, so we
Yes.
appreciate what they've done.
Absolutely.
Any other last comments, questions from council? I normally don't do this. I know we're running late, but this is a very important item. So I would like to just ask if there's anyone from the public that would like to make any comment or anything regarding our budget before we move forward with a motion. With nothing being
Mr. Mayor,
said,
if I may.
Yes, sir.
There is one item, revision that I need to bring to your attention. There's total four resolutions listed on here. The second one is labeled a resolution of the City Council of the City of Eastville proposing an appropriation limit of $695,354. There is a correction down at the bottom where the portion that starts now therefore. Down in the third sentence, there's a dollar amount listed there. It was supposed to be the same amount as the one at the top, so there was just a correction to be noted. It was off by a little bit, so those two should match. So the resolution that you're getting tonight to sign has been updated to reflect that, but I wanted to make it known that those should match.
Okay, so you're referring to on the actual resolution itself?
Correct.
Okay. And has that been changed or?
It has, yes. So the resolution that you'll receive actually is correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for letting us know. Do we need to do these as individual resolutions or all in one?
You can do them all.
Okay.
Mayor, I just wanted to also highlight, you highlighted Ernie's team, but the entire management team did, in the midst of a lot of other things that are going on in a number of initiatives, really did a lot of heavy lifting on this budget to make it look as great as it is, as well as this PowerPoint and how to communicate the story that aligns this budget with the strategic plan that you all adopted. It has been a complete team effort, and I want to thank our entire management team, including Erica, our attorney, for making sure that this is one of the best budgets that we could present before you this year. And there has been a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of late nights, a lot of Fridays, a lot of Saturdays, a lot of Sundays, a lot of phone conversations, a lot of dialogue on this budget, a lot of meetings to get this to where it is. And while it's a big budget and pretty robust to get through, we've tried our best to consolidate in layman's terms up in the front if you're not an accountant and can't get through all the spreadsheets. But it's all in there, and this is our effort to be as transparent as possible with where we're going in the future and for this next year with our strategic plan. So I just want to thank the entire management team, and they're all here. That's Angelica, Kimberly, Olivia, and we have Crystal and Gina, and even Mark was involved, even though he's only been here for a couple weeks, and Ernie. Did I miss anybody? I think I got everybody. But it has been an all hands on deck, a lot of extra hours, a lot of extra overtime. Well, we don't get overtime as managers. It's just a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of pats on the back. But we've done a lot of extra hard work to get this budget to where it is right here. So thank you very much to the team.
Great job, and thank you. With no further questions or discussion from council, I would solicit a motion on these four resolutions.
I'll make a motion to approve all four recommended actions.
Second.
Mr. Donahue, please.
Councilmember Yao,
Yes.
Councilmember Lorimore,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Plot,
Yes.
Mayor Rigby.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. All right. Once again, great job, staff. All right, moving on to item number 10, manager report, city staff report. Mr. Jones.
Well, we just approved the budget for this fiscal year, so we're pretty excited about that. Whew. Good job, team. Wanted to highlight a few things. Next Tuesday, we have the Business Success Roundtable for small businesses. And so if you have any questions about that or would like to be a part of that, reach out to our Economic Development Manager, Kimberly Wright, and she can connect you with more information. Public workshops. We have a couple coming up on a couple different topics. One is June 18th, and they will both be held here. And the June 18th one is a financial priorities workshop to continue the discussion about financial priorities and how to address the increasing expenditures and how to grow our revenues. And then July 30th will be a public safety workshop to discuss law enforcement. June 25th, we have a public safety commission meeting that will be moved over to the community center to align with the neighborhood watch program. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that from Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem in the near future, but I just wanted to publicly announce that. We will get it out on social media channels that it will not be held here at the council chambers. It will be held at the community center. Yes,
Right,
sir.
can we just make, as I know the public safety, can we just get a consensus among the council that they're okay with that as well? Just with, I don't know if that's, we need a nod or on that.
If you guys can just nod your heads that
Yes, yes.
we're okay with moving
We'll
it to
make
the
sure.
community center
Just
for
want
one
proper
meeting.
protocols.
Perfect. And then we had one of our best ever, I think it's record setting, residential cleanups. in which some people in the audience even participated. Ike Bootsma, we got to see him out there Saturday morning. It was 604 vehicles. Last year at this time, we had 387, so that's almost about a 40% increase in vehicles there, if I did my math real quick. But we took a lot of people's past used goods to the dump and recycled it. So we also wanted to remind that this, and we did a lot of paper shredding for security. State of the City is again July 17th. In the lunchtime for our business luncheon, and then the 18th for the free community event that will be followed by the Taste of Eastvale. And we just heard that Burtech will be our presenting sponsor, so that they ponied up $7,500 to be part of our presenting sponsor for that. So that's really exciting. And thank you, Burtech. And we have a number of other sponsors, and if you would like to sponsor it, please reach out to our chamber. There are a lot of sponsorship opportunities. We have a special planning commission meeting coming up next Wednesday. Is it the 29th? Where we will be discussing the Sliceman Avenue or Sliceman Road. What is it, Sliceman Road? Interchange with Interstate 15, and doing a general plan amendment to propose removing that interchange from the general plan. And so the first meeting will be a special planning commission meeting at the end of May, where we will follow it up with we will bring that general plan amendment to the council in June. Picnic in the Park is coming up in June, so be on the lookout. That is going to be a great event where we get to showcase our great community park and the city of Eastvale. As we highlighted earlier, we just won SB 821 grant for $350,000 for 65th Street connectivity improvements around the park. And the LED lights delivery will be happening next week, and we will be starting June 4th on the LED lights. So if you see somebody climbing up the light pole or up in a bucket truck around your street lights, we're getting new LED lights that are energy efficient, as well as a lot brighter and more visible, and will enhance the safety of our residential neighborhoods and our arterials. I also want to highlight, keep visiting our website, because any day now, the website will be updated and revamped and overhauled. It will be the finest government website in all of California. And it will be coming soon. So it will also be mobile app, and it will be accessible to all languages, or most languages. It will be an amazing, all languages. It will be. It'll be ADA compliant, and it'll be mobile phone app compliant. So it'll be awesome. So our current webpage, you kind of have to turn your phone and scan and move and all that kind of stuff. And then so that website's going to be a great way for us to continue our transparency and get information out into the community. And then I also wanted to highlight that as part of our strategic plan of organizational development, every year we do a retreat with our team, and we're also inviting our contract staff. We also extended the invitation to law enforcement and fire to be part of our annual retreat, which will be June 6th. And so we have a great guest speaker lined up and a lot of learning and team building going on that day. City Hall will remain open, but we encourage you, if you really need something from somebody from city staff, to come in prior to June 6th or after June 6th, because we'll have limited services, but City Hall will still be open for business. But that's a great day of growth and connectivity and development for our team. And that is it, to my knowledge. Again, we adopted a fiscal year budget, so we're pretty excited about that.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. We'll move on to City Council communications and committee reports, starting off with League of California Cities.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. League of California Cities. Well, I don't have to tell you because you were there. We had our, and then speaking to the mayor, We had our league division meeting on May 13th, since our last council meeting in Palm Desert. And the league division meeting, that's the League of California Cities. We have the division meeting, which includes all cities within Riverside County that are members of the league, came out to Palm Desert to weigh in on different pieces of legislation, get updates. We actually had the president of the League of California Cities, council member from up north, come and join us at the meeting and give an update as to some of the things she's been doing as president this year. One of the pieces of legislation that was discussed was SB 732. And for those that weren't there, or those that don't know about SB 732, it is a piece of legislation that was initially sponsored by AQMD, which is the South Coast Air Quality Management District. And it covers 4 counties, including Riverside County, Riverside, Orange, the County of Orange, LA, and San Bernardino counties. When they sponsor this piece of legislation, they're looking to do a 1% sales tax to cover a 4-county region. And this raised some concerns in that this would be a precedent that's not been seen before, that an agency like AQMD that covered a 4-county region could bring forward such a tax. And there were concerns by government agencies that also wanted to, so traditionally those that can put something like this on the ballot, a county or a city, they brought this, they were concerned because they might want to do a sales tax measure of their own, and in turn it would compete with AQMD's. But more than this, hypothetically, if this tax, it would have to go forward onto the ballot of 4 separate counties. If, hypothetically, everybody in Riverside County didn't want this tax and voted no against it, but the other 3 counties voted in favor of it, it would pass. And then it would not, but there's a question as to whether or not that's something that's fair, to have a tax imposed on us in Riverside County, particularly in that there are questions as to where the money would be spent. And anyway, long and short of it, this bill was brought forward. It's been turned into a 2-year bill. Initially, the AQMD, which sponsored this bill, asked to hold on to this bill a little bit longer. However, it looks like the bill is being hijacked by an environmental group out of Los Angeles and taken out of control. And also the author of the bill refused to pull the bill once AQMD asked it to be pulled. So it is of concern. The Riverside Division voted unanimously to oppose this bill. Our transportation agency, RCTC, has concerns with this bill, and a number of other league agency divisions are also opposed to this bill, including Los Angeles, where more than likely most of this money, if it were to pass, this tax would be spent. So that is what took place, and I know you were there, Todd, so thank you for coming out and representing the city.
Glad to be there. If I can share, on the Friday before that meeting, I attended a mayor's meeting for the League of California Cities Riverside County Division, and there were just a couple of bills that were shared there just to keep an eye on, just for just for our information. If I can share those with the council and with our residents. One was AB 1356. What this is saying that if your city was in favor of what was it, AB 64 regarding cannabis, that you will have to have a certain amount of cannabis licenses based off of your alcohol licenses. So basically about 25%. So if you had 4 alcohol licenses, you have to have 1 cannabis license now for every 4 alcohol licenses that you have, and that would go for restaurants, liquor stores, grocery stores, anyone that has an alcohol license. So that's AB 1356, something that can be kind of, once again, it would take away local control on cannabis regulation. There was also AB 891. Obviously, AB 1356, the league is opposed to that. AB 891, it talks about safe parking for people living in their cars. This applies for larger cities with a population, larger cities and counties with a population over 330,000. But the concern is if this is approved, it could set a precedence to eventually put it towards smaller cities, and it could affect us down the road. Once again, the league's in opposition to that. AB 516 is a bill regarding boot or towing a vehicle, basically saying that you can't tow or boot a vehicle that has numerous parking violations, non-payment of registration, or other such violations on the vehicle. So it was kind of interesting as we started discussing this, because it basically says that if you're going to get these citations, you're going to be in violation of the law. They can't do anything to your vehicle. So then why follow the law? Why get your car registered? Why abide by parking enforcement things? So this is a very scary bill. Once again, it sets a precedence. You start to allow people to not pay their registration, to not abide by parking restrictions. Then where does that go? Does it start to get into other restrictions also? So SB 50 was one that we talked about that was allowing multi-tenant, and that has been held up right now, so that's a good thing. But these bills that the league is in support or opposed to that I went over, I did share with our assembly member and also with our senator to pass on so that our voice is heard. But the senator's office responded back just to see if what I sent them, and I sent them this information, I'd be more than happy to send it to the rest of the council. But this is the league's stance, and senator's office asked if this was my personal opinion on these, or if this was a city's stance on these. I would like to ask for my colleagues' support, and that this is the city's stance to back the league's stance on these particular bills, if that would be okay from.
It was those pieces of legislation?
Correct.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Well, from my perspective, I would be in favor of that. That being said, we used to, many moons ago, we had a legislative committee, and it was ad hoc, but I think for situations like this, I think it'd be great if we actually had a standing committee that would meet during, well, no set meeting times, but at least while the legislature is in session, to have a standing meeting, maybe monthly, and also, but keep it nimble so that in situations like this, you get bills that whomever is on the committee can review those on the fly and be able to get sort of consensus more from the city, so that we don't have questions like that from the senator's office saying, is this a you opinion or the city's opinion? But I absolutely support the league's position on those bills, and would also like to suggest that we create a standing committee.
How would we go about properly doing that?
We would need to add that as an agenda item on a future agenda, because you can't take any formal action. It's not on the agenda this evening to take a position on any pending legislation. But we could bring those bills back for you to do a resolution of support or opposition, and probably, if there's support for it, the reestablishment of the legislative standing committee.
Can we do that? Would that be all right with everyone if we bring those back? And I think the tough thing with that is like Councilmember Lorimore said, time is of the essence with some of these. So to bring these bills back at a later time is good, but at the same time it can hurt us by not being able to address them right away. So I think, like Councilmember Lorimore said, to have a standing committee that we can throw these bills against to get appropriate voices heard. So if we can bring that back, that would be great. We'll let Councilmember Lorimore continue on with SCAG.
Thank you. Yeah, the last, well, since the last council meeting, SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments, had its Legislative Communications and Membership Committee meeting. That was actually Tuesday of this week. At that meeting, it was a relatively light agenda. We set the schedule for the coming year for the meetings that would be held, and they're generally held the same time every month. There will be 2 months this year that are dark. I usually take these meetings at the SCAG office in downtown Riverside, and they're 8:30 in the morning Tuesdays on, what is it, the 4th, what is it? I forget. But it's, let me pull it up here on my calendar. So it's the 3rd Tuesday. Couple of pieces of legislation that were discussed. One was Assembly Bill AB 11 by Chu, and that is in reference to redevelopment. There were some abuses with redevelopment in the state. However, it was a critical tool for cities to be able to go through into blighted areas and redevelop it. But because of some of the abuses that took place, redevelopment is squashed, and that money was pulled back into the state in many cases. However, for local governments, it has been something that people have been looking for. The current governor, Governor Newsom, has not been in favor of redevelopment up to now. Jerry Brown was very much against it. That being said, there is this bill, AB 11, with some more restrictions in place, is looking to reestablish redevelopment, but not call it redevelopment because redevelopment is bad, apparently. But anyway, so that bill was brought up and discussed, and the committee voted to support that piece of legislation. The governor is in favor of tax increment financing and specifically enhanced infrastructure finance districts. So, and only a couple cities have been able to take advantage of that in California. One of them is Laverne. But it definitely changes the way that taxes or money for local projects can be garnered. Second bill, AB 47, Daley, Frazier. The legislature is going out of its way to bring forward a lot of bills, this year. Last year, the 2-year cycle, it was almost 4,000, and I expect in this 2-year cycle it'll be that too. So the state's there, churning out bills, and one of them has to do with driving records. This one's AB 47 by Daley and Frazier. And points to your license, specifically for distracted driving. And so if you are caught right now on your phone, which does cause accidents, so be sure to talk hands-free. But with this piece of legislation, they would make this an offense that could be added to the points on your record. And so that is for, you get points, for instance, for speeding, many, the things that you get pulled over for, that usually get added to your record. So that was also brought forward before the committee. And in that SCAG, one of the things that they have is the Go Human campaign, which talks about paying attention to drivers on the, that we share the road with bicyclists, with pedestrians, and one of those things, having a cell phone, if you're looking down at it, you might not see that pedestrian. So the committee did support that. There were a couple of us that did have concerns with this bill. I like it in concept, but also I have concerns about the mission creep of SCAG as an agency that is supposed to be a transportation agency involved in infrastructure projects, focusing on this side of it and whether or not it should weigh in. But also well, that was my main reason for having concerns with it. But the bill, that did get supported by the committee. And that concludes my report for the SCAG LCMC.
Thank you. And WRCOG, that is Councilmember Tassari, and he's not here this evening. Riverside Transit Agency.
I think my friend Keith over here in public comment probably summed up everything for RTA. So just to reiterate though, I will reiterate, we do have a meeting tomorrow. So if there's anything to discuss report, I will bring it back in the next council meeting. And to reiterate what Keith did bring up, it's very important. Basically, students ride for 25 cents from June 1st to September 2nd. As long as you show a school ID, you ride for 25 cents on any bus route through RTA. So it's a heck of a deal, and take advantage of that. So that's all. That is true. Yep, that's true as well. So that's it.
Thank you, sir. Western Community Energy has not met. We were supposed to have a meeting today, but ended up getting canceled. Northwest Mosquito and Vector Control District, it's Councilmember Tassari. I do know that they did spray recently, I think it was last week, down by the riverbed area. Riverside County Transportation Commission, RCTC.
The next meeting's tomorrow morning, and you attended the last one.
I remember I attended that one.
It was 3 hours.
I won't forget that meeting.
There's a 30-minute meeting tomorrow if you want to do it.
I'm busy tomorrow. Western Riverside County Regional Conservation Agency.
Haven't had a meeting since then.
Thank you. The Girl Scouts did a good job in presenting the species that we'll use for the species for tonight, right?
Yes, yes. Can beat that. That's yeah, that's gonna be challenging.
JCSD Parks Commission.
And we actually have, we'll be there, you and I, Mr. Mayor, will be there tomorrow evening.
Thank you. And then Finance Committee?
Yeah, I'll just make one comment about the Finance Committee. I was telling her over there, we're 2 for 2 now. Since we've ever been involved, myself and Councilmember Tassari, Councilmember Tassari, we've ever been involved there, since the last 2.5 years, we've been involved in the Finance Committee. The last 2 finance teams, for the first time, we actually have the public showing up. So Herb was one of them that showed up to our finance committee and kind of gets to understand the process where we go through the warrant register, we go through every check or credit card receipt during a certain time frame. So the doors are always open. Well, by law they have to be open, but so we welcome anyone in the public that wants to come and kind of see how that process is vetted. So, but it's kind of awesome to get that feedback. It's always fun to be able to see that process. So that's all.
Thank you.
If I could add
Yes,
on, I was able to sit in or be part of that one yesterday, and I think the real reason he did read the agenda, and it was 20-something pages, right? But that being said, the real reason he came was for the public.
Oh,
I'm just saying.
I know. I kind of left it out. I was trying to get a win here from the finance committee. That's all. You took it away from me. Man.
All right. Council Communications. Councilmember Yao.
Nothing to report. Yeah.
Councilmember Lorimer.
Yes. Discussed my communications, but one thing that I would like to put out there is the Fuller case that is being weighed in on by the CalPERS board, and this will be creating of a precedent decision. We do have a lobbyist that works on our behalf, and I would like, this is something that will is critical to the city of Eastvale and how we have staffed in the past. And this decision, I would like it if our lobbyist would be able to weigh in on this, but I would like to get concurrence of the council to give direction to staff to ask for that. And this is also part of, you kind of beat me to it. I took the opportunity, Mr. Mayor, but I wanted to also talk about reinstating the legislative committee for exactly this sort of thing. So That concludes my comments.
Thank you for bringing that up about the Fuller case. I actually reached out to the city manager and just trying to see how we can best support that. And I think we're looking into it right now. So, Councilmember Plott.
Yeah, I just have one comment. So we just approved the budget for the $500,000 to incentivize restaurants, and we're at a point now. We're right in the negotiations of some pretty awesome restaurants, from anywhere from just diverse restaurants to fine dining to steakhouses, you name it. And it's the discussions is a lot with the developer and tenant, and I know most of these restaurants are looking to see what the city's willing to put skin in the game. I think it's wise to create a committee to help out with that negotiation from 2 council members to be represented in those negotiations. Obviously, nothing is done until it comes back to council for approval as far as how we allocate those funds. But I think it might be a wise idea to do that, and wanted to see if there was any opposition to that, or if any comments to that, if that was something you guys would like to look at or consider. And if that was something that we had to make an agenda item for as well.
I would suggest, if there's no immediate urgency, that we do bring that back as a further item, especially because you're also missing a council member who might have an opinion on that as well, or want to.
Yeah, I don't think there's no immediate urgency, but there's a level of urgency because things are starting to happen, and discussions there's gaps that are looking to be bridged as well. So we're, I'm not gonna say it's absolutely urgent, but I would put it, if we can't get it somewhere soon on the agenda.
Well, our next council meeting's in early June, so we can shoot to have something there, hopefully. If I see head nods, I'll bring something back.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of bringing it back. I think we have a
head
consensus
nods.
on that. Councilmember Plott, anything else?
That's all. No, I'm through. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a couple of quick items. First, before I forget, we do have a number of restaurants and things within the city. I know we don't have a lot of fine dining yet, or any fine dining, but there are eateries in the city. I just encourage you to continue to support those eateries. Specifically, we have a lot of youth sports programs, school programs that utilize some of those as a fundraiser. I know that our high school has a fundraiser through one of them coming up tomorrow. So I invite you to look at that and support these local businesses, as well as support these youth in our community that are using these fundraisers. So you can reach out to the schools regarding those, all different ones. I believe the high school football one is coming up tomorrow at Miguel's. So one of the questions that I actually meant to ask this during the budget, it's nothing crucial in the budget, but can we, and if my colleagues support me in this, can we look at, I know that recently there has been a lot of requests regarding public information, public records requests, which I'm glad to see that our community is interested to know what's going on and to see things. At the same time, I want to make sure our community knows that we're always open for any questions, comments, concerns that they may have, that they can reach out directly to us. But I know that there's been a lot of public records requests lately. Can we start tracking the cost of those? Because I know that it takes a lot of time from our city attorney, from our city clerk, from our city manager, just going through those things and making sure that information is provided to those that are requesting these. But at the same time, I know it's a burden on our staff. So can we, I think it'd be good for us as a council to know what we're spending on that. If we can request that our staff starts to track that, and if they can, maybe the last 6 months, year or so, if we can just kind of get a rough idea what we spent on those, if my colleagues would support me in that.
It's funny, actually, we mentioned that the finance committee yesterday, I was asking Ernie for that same cost. It was not even her, because he heard me say it as well. So yeah, yes, absolutely.
Thank you. That would be good just to see. One of the reasons being is because it takes away from other things, and we need to look at, do we need to reallocate additional funds to other resources that these public records requests are taking. Once again, our public has the right to those. Like I said, I'm glad that they're engaging, but we just need to be conscious of what we're spending and let our community know what we're spending on these things. So with that being said too, I think we also need to, if we can bring back sometime in the near future, just to revisit our purchasing policy, just to see what we can do to be a little bit more efficient in that and make sure that we're all on the same page on that, and just make sure that staff has the ability to do things how they should be. And I think there's some things that we may be able to clarify and tighten up in that if we can bring back that at a time in the future. Councilmember Tesari and I had the opportunity to go to the California Contract Cities Conference this last weekend. It was a great conference. There's a lot of good information, a lot of good conversations that were had. But just a couple of key points that I learned and got from that. One was they talked about the Wolseley fire and just the different cities and different services that affected, specifically law enforcement and fire, and just being prepared. And they just went through things that they could have done, kind of just the recap after the event was over, but just helped me to realize. And I actually talked to our city manager about this, just making sure that we have our plan, that we're aware of our plan. And I think something in the long-term future, I think it'd be kind of nice for us to do some sort of drill or something just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So nothing right now, we're bombarded with a lot of things, but just to know that may be something in the future. One of the other topics they talked about was becoming a smart city, what it takes to be a smart city, and just information on that. And just how efficient that being a smart city can help a city, can help with city staff and city services, and just looking at the longevity of a smart city. They did talk about, some of the conversations we had was about CalPERS, the Fuller decision that's coming up too. But overall, it was a very good meeting and a good conference that we had out there. So let me just quickly go through this. I think that's it. So I think if the council doesn't have any other comments, then we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. And the next meeting of the Eastville City Council will be on June 12th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. And this meeting is now adjourned.